Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, in the county, city, state, Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, August the 4th, 2024. The time, 12 p.m. First, I thank you to my fans, my support for you. Continue to support. Continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area. Continue to further my education, moral college online. Continue to pursue my social degrees, done being administrative, country, and market. At the present time, I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to earn my social degree as well as other degrees. Now, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to start my Facebook Live. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine, right here in the city of Memphis, is in the county, city, state, of Tennessee. Today's date is Sunday afternoon, August the 4th, 2024. The time is 12:13 p.m. First, I thank you for my family, my support for continuing to continue to keep myself employed in the Memphis tri-state area and continue to further my education in moral college online, continue to pursue my social degree, being administrative. Study being administrative, country, and marketing. At the present time, I took a break and going to school. In the future, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to earn my social degree as well as other degrees. Now, like I said, it's Sunday afternoon, and had to always give myself time, get myself together. Kind of woke up a little bit later because I fell asleep kind of late last night. Fell asleep in the recliner. Nodded out, dozed off after I ate dinner and stuff like that. Ate my dinner and everything. I messed around and sat in the chair. I was intending on doing one thing. I messed around and dozed off. By the time I woke up, it was like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh, wow. So I went on, got in the bed and got myself together and everything this morning. But like I said, it's Sunday afternoon and everything. Hope everyone is enjoying the Olympics and everything. It's good to see people from all over the world, being able to compete in various athletic competition and everything, and just being able to compete without any animosity or hostility and things of this nature, but just people just competing. They, think about how people have trained for so many years. I messed around and seen a YouTube video. They show YouTube videos sometimes. I mean, little children starting almost from birth, and then you see the result. I mean, they stay dedicated to their, to their sport, and then you can just see how, being dedicated like that. And for so many years practicing at this sport, and you see the result: gold medals, silver medals, bronze medals, and then the level of competition has just risen. There was time when people were competing in the same sport. The level of competition was at a level then. Look at the level of competition today in the same sport. I'm talking about in all sports, and then you got some new sports, have been added to the competition and everything. But I mean, it's very inspiring, very encouraging to see so many people from around the world. I think that's the best thing about the Olympics, is that it's international. I think that's the most beautiful thing and the most encouraging thing about the Olympics, is that at first when the Olympics started, it was just like all European. And every now and then you will see like a person who wasn't European, like for example, I can just think off the top of my head, Jim Thorpe, and that was back in the early 1900s. Jim Thorpe, for example. And then later on you start seeing African Americans or blacks or maybe some other age. You know, people, I can't name all the people off the top of my head, but just look at what you see today. Practically, there's no bar. No one from any nation is barred from the Olympics. Every human being, and then it's not just men, it's women. Look at all the women that compete in the Olympics from all over the world. And then, of course, religion. People from various religious beliefs competing in the Olympics. That's what's inspiring, and that's what's encouraging, is that people, regardless of your religion or your all these different ideologies and stuff like that, and then people from different ethnicities, people from various nations around the world, even people that are at war. Some nations at war with each other, but just look what happened. The Olympics. People from various nations all around the world are competing in peace, peaceably, and just, being an athlete, and just, who or whatever, whichever athlete or athletes, able to become the victor. They earned the gold medal, the silver medal, and the bronze medal. And those who didn't earn a medal, they could still compete to the best. They made the sport, better because of competition. You can always keep training, and you can always aspire. One day you can earn a gold, silver. It happens. Sometimes athletes, they earn a bronze medal, or a silver medal, or a gold medal. Next 4 years, the same athlete, they done moved up. They kept training, and kept aspiring. And next thing you know, they end up with the gold medal, or went from a bronze to a silver medal. And so just like I say, sometimes the athlete who didn't earn a medal, next thing you know, they done moved up. We seeing it. I just happened to have the TV on yesterday, because they Sunday and Saturday. Mess around. I just turned the TV on, had it on, because I really wanted. I was walking back and forth through the house and stuff, and just had the Olympics on, and I seen some diving. Mess around and seen Mexico. The Chinese still won. Most people didn't even think Mexico had a chance. They messed around and gave China a run for their money. It was almost to the point. China messing around, almost didn't get to go. Almost didn't get to go. But they messed around at their last dive, and next thing you know, China ended up getting the gold. I think Mexico, and I think it was another nation, Great Britain. That's what happened. Nobody thought Mexico was gonna be in the competition. They didn't think. And then the American team, people were saying that the American team, and they messed around and messed up on a dive. They moved the other competitors up, and they moved them down. And China was in, but like I said, hey, all of us who was watching, it was almost finna be that the Chinese were finna lose. They messed around and came back in that last dive. They ended up getting the gold. But they felt the pressure. Then Mexico, I think Mexico got the silver, and it was the same thing for Great Britain. Hey, Great Britain was trying to get the gold, but sometimes the points and everything, but they still medal. They end up with I think they were bronze, and Mexico end up. But that's the point. But see, that's the beauty of the Olympics. Everyone has a chance. No one's being denied any opportunity, and it's just no competition. And but that's the beauty of it. People from all over the world are competing in peaceable, competition. It's just athletics, and nobody's fighting and finna go get a gun and bombs and everything and start killing, and people from all over the world, just compete. And I think that's the beauty of the whole Olympics, that people from all over the world can come together without any disagreement, and we can just compete in all these varieties of athletics, and just compete for a gold medal, silver medal, bronze medal. And I mean, it's beautiful. Just looking at all the various sports and everything, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful, and it's just so inspiring to see nations from all over the world. Some nations are underdeveloped, but they might have sent one athlete or two athletes, but they just did, the best they could. And then the athletes that they sent, sometimes them the athletes that in whatever sport they competing in, they not mediocre. They are pretty good in whatever sport they competing in. They not mediocre. So I mean, that's the inspiring thing. That's the encouraging thing about it, man. Is that people from all over the world can come together without any arguing or fighting. That we can just compete in athletics for a gold medal, a silver medal, and a bronze medal, and you can still take that same concept of people from all over the world, and we can still work for try to be peace with one another, and not be out here trying to kill and all this kind of stuff. But look, we're gonna go right here to BibleStudyTools.com. They have all available versions of the Holy Bible. Now you got like your best known translations of the Holy Bible, like the Holman Christian Standard Bible, the English Standard Bible, King James Version, the New American Standard Bible, New International Version, and then you got the New King James Version and New Revised Standard Version of the whole. Then you got other translations like the modern the Bible in Basic English, Common English Bible, Complete Jewish Bible, the Good News Translation. What you got? The Hebrew Names Version, Jubilee Bible 2000, Lexham English Bible. You got the New International Reader's Version, the Orthodox Jewish Bible, Third Millennium Bible, World English Bible, Young's Literal Translation. I mean, older translations of the Holy Bible, the American Standard Version, the Darby Translation, the Dual Reams Catholic Bible, Revised Standard Version, Tyndale Bible, Latin Vulgate, the Webster Bible, Wycliffe Bible, New Testament only. And then, of course, you got Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, Dutch, and Chinese. Then you got your this Devil Bible Study, BibleStudyTools.com. Let me go back over here to and then let's not forget the Bible verse of the day. Romans chapter 5 verse number 8, and it says, "But God demonstrates His own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." And again, that's the Bible verse of the day. And also, we got today's Bible reading. It comes from 2 Corinthians, the 5th chapter, 11th verse, and also the 6th chapter, 13th verse. And also you have 2 Kings, chapter 18, and also you have the book of Micah, the 7th chapter. And so, like I said, that was today's Bible reading, Okay, and again, we're on BibleStudyTools.com. Let's click over to BibleGateway.com, and they have all available versions of the Holy Bible. And a lot of the language and the versions are like Amharic, Arabic. They have the Holy Bible in Arabic. Can't pronounce Wadadi, a Wadi Bible, the Bulgarian Bible, And like I said, even for Native Americans, there's a Cherokee New Testament Bible. Native American, First Americans, indigenous people from all over the world. What's that? Kurdish Sarani Standard Bible, the Czech Bible, Welsh, Danish, German. Of course, English Bibles. There's a lot of English Bibles, a lot of Spanish, a lot of Spanish Bible, Persian, Finnish, French, Greek Bibles, Gujarati Bible, Hebrew Bibles, Hindi, various languages, Croatian, Haitian, Creole Bible, Hungarian Bibles, Hawaiian Bibles, Iceland, Italian, Japanese, Jakartic Bibles, Kekchi Bible, Korean Bibles, Latin Bibles, Luganda Bible, Maori Bible, Macedonian. It's a lot. I'm scrolling down the list, which is a good thing. Now, some of the languages, I probably, trying to pronounce, but the thing about it, look at how the Holy Bible is being translated. People all over the world, various languages. Nepali, Dutch, Norwegian, Chichewa, Oriya, West Central Oromo, Punjabi, Polish, Papio, Nawat Bible, Portuguese Bibles, Ochua and Chichi Bible, Romanian Bibles, Russian, Slavic, Somali Bibles, Albanian Bibles, Serbian, Swedish, Swahili, Tamil, Thai, Tagalog, Twi, Ukrainian, Urdu, Uspantico, Vietnamese Bibles, Yoruba Bibles, Chinese Bibles. That's a beautiful thing. That people all over the world, in their culture and customs, which is the language, the Holy Bible is being translated, Old Testament, New Testament. See, this is the reason why it's so important about the names of God and all these things, like when we talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls being discovered, and it took 10 years for the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then the whole process of translating and all, but that's the importance. People taking it serious. That's a serious thing. That people, what you believe, the Holy Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. That's how important the Dead Sea Scroll discovery is. The Holy Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. That's how important it is. So like I said, we're on BibleGateway.com, all available versions. Let me click over here. Now we have the verse of the day, Jeremiah chapter 33, verses 2 and 3. And it reads, "This is what the Lord says. He who made the earth, the Lord who formed it and established it, the Lord is his name. Call to me, and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things you do not know." So that's the verse of the day. I don't think they have no Bible reading. Okay, and that Bible Gateway, like I said, we on Bible Gateway. They ain't have a verse for the day, but I want to make sure I mention that. I know sometimes I kind of, but I had to remind myself not to, because they do. They have a BibleStudyTools.com and Bible Gateway. They both always have a verse of the day. Now let me click over here. The names of God. The Old Testament. Names of God. Elohim. Adonai. Jehovah Jireh. And Jehovah Jireh again. Jehovah Jireh. This is pronunciating Jehovah and Jireh and Jehovah Jireh. El Olam. Jehovah Sabaoth. Elyon, Jehovah. El Shaddai, Jehovah Rapha. Now we know the Tetragrammaton is very sacred and it's not even pronounced, but the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah, Siddiqenu, Abba, Alpha and Omega, Jehovah Ra, Jehovah Mikodishim, Mikodishkim. All right, and then Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Shammah, Elyon, El Roy, Emmanuel, living God. Those are some names from the names of God in the Old Testament. So let's go to the names of God in the New Testament. Elohim, Elyon, and of course the Tetragrammaton, and Jehovah Jireh, El, God, El Shaddai, Jehovah Nisi, Jehovah Roy, God the Shepherd, El Olam, Jehovah Siddiqenu, Adonai, Jehovah Shalom, Jehovah Shammah, Jehovah Sabaoth, Abba, Jehovah Mikodishkim. So those are some of the names of God in the New Testament. Now let me click over here this Tetragrammaton. Get some information on this Tetragrammaton, very important. And of course we're on Wikipedia. Let me scroll down. Let me scroll down to Wikipedia. All right, we're on Wikipedia. References, notes, citations. It's like 171 citations and sources. Then you got external links. All right. When we talking about this Tetragrammaton, from ancient Greek, consisting of 4 letters, or the tetragram, is the 4-letter Hebrew theonym. And theonym is a proper name of a deity, transliterated as capital Y, capital H, capital W, and capital H, or capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital H. The name of God in the Hebrew Bible, the 4 letters written and read from right to left in Hebrew, are YODH, HEWAW, and HE. The name may be derived from a verb that means to be, to exist, to cause, to become, or to come to pass. While there is no consensus about the structure and etymology of the name, the form Yahweh is now accepted almost universally, though the vocalization Jehovah continues to have wide usage. The books of the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, except Esther, Ecclesiastes, and with a possible instance of, in verse 8 and 6, the Song of Songs contain this Hebrew name, observant Jews, and those who follow Talmudic Jewish traditions do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh, or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. For emphasis' sake, I'm going to read that again. Observant Jews and those who follow Talmudic Jewish tradition do not pronounce, nor do they read aloud proposed transcription forms such as Yahweh or Jehovah. Instead, they replace it with a different term, whether in addressing or referring to the God of Israel. Common substitution in Hebrew are Adonai, literal translation, my lords, pluralis, majestatis, taken as singular, or Elohim, literally gods, but treated as singular when meaning God in prayer, or Hashem, the name, in everyday speech. Now you have 4 letters. Now when we talk about the etymology, the Hebrew Bible explains it by the formula. Okay. Transliterated, he translated, I am that I am. The name of God revealed to Moses in Exodus 3:14. This would frame capital Y, capital H, capital W, and capital H as a derivation from the Hebrew transconsonantal root to be, become, come to pass, with a third person masculine, Y, prefix, equivalent to English, he, in place of the first person, thereby affording translations as he who causes to exist, he who is, etc. Although this would elicit the form capital Y, capital H, capital Y, capital H, not capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H. To rectify this, some scholars okay, let me go back and make sure you caught that. See, it said this would elicit the form capital Y, capital H, capital Y, capital H, not capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H. See, it was a Y and a W. That's what they're talking about. To rectify this, some scholars propose that the Tetragrammaton represents a substitution of the medial Y from W. And occasionally attested practice in biblical Hebrew as both letters function as matrix lectionis. Others propose that the Tetragrammaton derived instead from the triconsonantal root HWH to be constitute with the final form elicits similar translation as those derived from HYH. As such, the consensus among modern scholars considers that capital Y, capital H, capital W, capital H represents a verbal form, with the Y representing the third masculine verbal prefix of the verb HYH to be, as indicated in the Hebrew Bible. So that the etymology is very important. Now, when we talk about the vocalization, like all letters in the Hebrew script, the letters N, Y, capital H, capital W, capital H originally indicated consonants. In unpointed biblical Hebrew, most vowels are not written, but some are indicated ambiguously as certain letters came to have a secondary function indicating vowels, similar to the Latin use of I and V to indicate either the consonants J, or W, or the vowels I or U. Hebrew letters used to indicate vowels are known as or matrix lectionis, mothers of reading. Therefore, it can be difficult to deduce how a word is pronounced from its spelling, and each of the four letters in the tetragrammaton can individually serve as a mater lectionis. Several centuries later, between the 5th through the 10th century CE, the original consonantal text of the Hebrew Bible was provided with vowel marks by the Masoretes to assist reading. In places where the word to be read, the kiri, differed from that indicated by the consonant of the written text, the ketiv, they wrote the kiri in the margin as a note showing what was to be read. In such a case, the vowel marks of the kiri were written on the ketiv. For a few frequent words, the marginal note was omitted. These are called kiri perpetuum. One of the frequent cases was the tetragrammaton, which according to later rabbinic Jewish practices should not be pronounced but read as Adonai, literally translate my lords. Pluralis, majestatis, taken as singular. Or if the previous or next word already was Adonai, as Elohim, God. Writing the vowel diacritics of these two words on the consonants. Capital Y, capital H, capital V, capital A, produces, and respectively, ghost words that will spell Yehovah and Yehovah, respectively. The oldest complete or nearly complete manuscripts of the Masoretic text with Tiberian vocalizations such as the Aleppo Codex and the Leningrad Codex, both of the 10th or 11th century, mostly write Yahweh with no pointing on the first H. It could be because the O diacritic point plays no useful role in distinguishing between Adonai and Elohim, and so is redundant. Or it could point to the kiri being, which is Aramaic for the name. And so then it goes on to Yahweh and so on and forth. But that's the tetragrammaton. Now, which is sacred, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, to the Jewish belief, faith, that's very important. It's very sacred, and they don't even pronounce it. They don't even vocalize it. And if you did say something, instead of saying the tetragrammaton, they'll say Jehovah. And then other cases, they, instead of saying Jehovah, it's Adonai or Elohim or Hashim, some of the other names, because it's sacred. So the tetragrammaton is very sacred to the Jewish faith, to the Jewish belief system. Like I said, that's the reason why the Dead Sea Scroll discovery is so significant. Now, anti-gang, anti-Gnostic, and anti-hazing. Also, adversus, heresies, translated mean against heresies. Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyon, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, they wrote a 5-volume book refuting Gnosticism, proving that Gnosticism was a heresy. Also, Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, in the year 367 AD, in his 39th festal letter, Easter letter, banned all non-Christian writing. Saint Athanasius, the Bishop of Alexandria, together with all the other bishops in the Catholic Church, they went around and collected all that Gnostic theologian writing and destroyed it. Some of that Gnostic theologian writing didn't get destroyed. A person took some copies of that Gnostic theologian writing, wrapped it in papyrus paper, and put it in a jar and buried it in Nagamite, Egypt. In 1945, the little farm boy was outside playing, and he found the jar that the Gnostic theologian writing had been wrapped, that was wrapped in that papyrus paper. It was found. And the little farm boy gave what he found to his father, who was a farmer. And the scholars found out about it. And they was inquiring about the discovery. It took a lot of years for the scholars in the colleges and universities around the world to finally have, access to the Nagamite Library, like those other codexes. Was it the Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, and the Berlin Codex? And see, the scholars, like I said, it took some time. It took a lot of years for them to actually, because the Egyptian government had a lot of changes, going through a lot of transitions and things. And then the Egyptian government's antiquities department, their museum, they had got access to the discovery. And that was in 1960s. And then Mr. Robinson and UNESCO got some scholars together. They commissioned, UNESCO commissioned Mr. Robinson and get some scholars together and start translating the Nagamite Library. Because it was by that time, about the late 60s and early 70s, it was in the museum over in Egypt, in Cairo. And so, and then after they got the translations and things of this nature, and then the college and universities got the facsimile and things of this nature. That took all the way to the 80s, 1980s. And so it took some time, for the Nagamite Library to actually be translated, and for people all over the world, the college and universities around the world, to have copies of the Nagamite Library, and for it to be studied, and for it to be investigated and researched, and dated and things of this nature. And also, and then the thing about the Nagamite Library is that, organized crime, they have been using and misusing the Nagamite Library. Some of the people in academia, some criminals, have been using and misusing the Nagamite Library, to victimize, to be self-destructive and destructive. And going around destroying wildlife, nature, and the environment, trying to destroy the North and South Pole, trying to destroy outer space. They doing these things. And not just me sitting here, but these are things that are actually being done by these criminals. They criminals. And also, Saint Epiphanes of Salome, the Bishop of Cyprus, wrote a 3-volume book titled Panarion, that's in Greek, Panarium, that's in Latin. Translated mean bread basket. The scholars at the college and university around the world say Saint Epiphanes of Salome, Bishop of Cyprus, 3-volume book is also adversus heresies, against heresies. And also, Saint Hippolytus, he also wrote a book titled Against All Heresies. And see, that's another thing about organized crime. When we studied, there was a time when academics, people that called college and university, because we ain't always have what we have today. You got to remember what was the first university in Oxford University, and then later on Cambridge University, and so on and so forth. So that's what we talking about. And when you talk about criminals, the Catholic Church been around ever since the first century, the historical Jesus. And then of course Judaism goes all the way back, talking about BCE, before the Common Era. And when you're trying to time and things of this nature. And so it's important, that these things be pointed out. Is that just like Hippolytus wrote all these, against heresies and things of this nature. And when you talk about criminals and things of this nature, that's what is important about this Gnostic nonsense. Is that when you talk about Judaism is historical. The historians can documentation, not just from a Jewish point of view, but it was what, like the Romans and Greeks, they had documented things down. And you don't find any documentation about no Gnosticism, period. You don't find any historical, especially in the BCE. You don't see anything. The scholars, what they call today contemporary scholars and modern scholars, there's no historical information about no Gnosticism before the first century. When you get into the first century, you start hearing about this Gnosticism, and there's no such thing as trying to blend Gnosticism with Judaism or blend Gnosticism with the Catholic Church. But first of all, the Catholic Church been around since the historical Jesus been around. First of all, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the Son of God, established the church, and then he chose his 12 disciples, apostles, and then he commissioned them to go around, and spread the gospel. And so that's what makes it important about, because when you talk about heresiology, that's what we were talking about, is that the church, the Catholic Church, in heresiology. For example, in Versus Heresies, there was no information about Gnosticism, period. All that Gnostic theologian writing, it got destroyed. And then the so-called Nag Hammadi Library, it had been buried ever since the 3rd century. Even when scholars today, when they try to use all this dating stuff to date things that get found and discovered, they try to say that how old is it? And that's what it means about this dating. Just like the Dead Sea Scrolls. When they use modern dating processes, the Dead Sea Scrolls very old. It goes past the 1st century. The Dead Sea Scrolls go all the way back to the BCE. That's how old it is. It's not in the 1st century. The Dead Sea Scrolls go back to the BCE. That's how old it is. If it's anybody got any questions about it, the scholars are dating this thing. They investigating and researching. It's being studied. The Dead Sea Scroll being studied, just like the Nag Hammadi Library, just like the Askew Codex, the Bruce Codex, and the Berlin Codex, all that Gnostic and all that man-dead stuff that gets found in the ground or get discovered. It gets dated. And so that's what criminals do. That's what they mean about the criminals. They took the Nehemiah library, they took the Adversus Heraces, which the heresiology, they were refuting Gnosticism. And so the only record of Gnosticism is, at that time, was Adversus Heraces. They distorted it, just like they took Plato's book. They took Plato's book, the Timaeus or Timaeus, and it was talking about the demiurge being a benevolent god. The criminals, organized crime, they took that and distorted it and said that the demiurge was a clumsy god, a stupid god, an evil god. You know, that dualism stuff. And they lied. Basically, they lied. And that's what they did with the heresiology. Just like Hippolytus, he also wrote a book, against all heresy. Well, see, this is what they did. They took the information and they distorted it. And they lied about Gnosticism. Because that's all Gnosticism is, a big lie. Because to the Jews, of course, it ain't nothing but a lie. You're a heretic. You're a heretic to the Jews. Nothing that you're saying is right. You're backwards. You're a heretic. For example, Rabbi Akiva, a very respected rabbi in the first century, did not want Gnosticism to have any influence on Judaism, period. Did not even want that Grecian philosophy to be an influence on Judaism, as well as all this intellectual stuff. See? And so that's what's important, is that organized crime is trying to distort information. And they're trying to take things, information, and just lie. That's what they did with heresiology. So when it comes to Gnosticism and the Nehemiah library, all it is organized crime doing what they always do, lie. They just lie. That's all they doing, lying. The Almighty, conservative, vice lord, four corner hustle. The Almighty, black, Prince Stone. The Almighty, Mickey, Cobra Stone, Cracker. The Almighty, black, disciple, Poppy. The Bluefin, black disciple. The black disciple. Lord, Stone, disciple. Gangster, disciple killer. GDK. Glazed donut killer. GDK. 7-11. G killer. Goofy. See, the important thing to see is what organized crime has done and is doing. See, it's a historical fact what organized crime has done. All this racism. I mean, you know, let's just throw some words out. Racism, bigotry, prejudice. It's organized crime. And just look at what the criminals always do. If you look at slavery, let's just look at organized crime. It can be women, children, men, women. It can be men, of course. Look at slavery. Just like, you know, slavery ain't always, it ain't been relegated to just one group trying to oppress another group, you know, on that point. But just look at slavery, for example. It can be people in the same, this is a historical fact. Whatever you say about slavery, it can be the people that are the same people. And they enslave each other. They compete to try to be on top, you know. This is not just having a conversation, but this is a historical fact. Which what we call slavery, about forced labor. It don't have to be one group and conquered another group. Historically, people are the same people oppress each other. And they force each other, you know, to do all this work and stuff. And that includes men making the women wash and, you know, do the laundry and, you know, do the stuff out in the field while the men sitting around. When it comes to slavery, this is organized crime. And then when it comes to all this stuff about digging in the ground, finding gold and silver and iron and all this kind of stuff, slavery. Somebody's doing all this labor while somebody else is just sitting around directing other people to do this and forcing them to do this. And if you refuse to do what they tell you to do, you're gonna get killed. And so to keep from getting killed, you just until you can rise up and overthrow that person. And so, I mean, you know, and then, you know, we can call it slavery or prostitution or whatever. You can call it whatever you want. It's somebody trying to be over somebody else. And then the way they do things, just like the water, the food. If you don't do what I tell you to do, you're not going to get no water. You're not going to get no food. Because I control the water. I control the food. I control this land. So that's the food. And I control this water. You're not going to put no well here because I'm not going to let you. How many, these women ain't finna fight about no water well. They gonna die. Because that's what the men do. They'll kill the women and then they'll sit around and drink water. And then they ain't gonna feed themselves. They gonna hunt and gather. See, this is what organized crime do. And then when it comes to talking about all these differences in how we look and how short, how tall, male and female, what language you speak and all this. This what organized crime, this what criminals do. Us against them and them against us, you against me and me against you. They were organized crime. They were criminals do. Influence. You're talking about God. Or how many gods? One God, two God, one God, or more than one God. See, they were criminals do. They were the criminals. This is what they have done, and this is what they are doing. Trying to influence people in a negative way. Us against them, and them against us. You against me, and me against you. And then even against yourself. You'll even be self-destructive. And if it ain't, then you'll be fighting against nature. You'll be fighting against wildlife. You wouldn't even care. See, that's why, you know what I'm saying? With all this nonsense about the material world being evil. See, it's like us as humans going against the wildlife. We against nature because it's evil. You're trying to destroy the whole planet. And then you ain't going to even stop with trying to destroy the earth. Then you're going to go out in space and do the same thing. Try to destroy space with this stupid Gnostic stuff. Talking about the material world is evil. See, you ain't doing but lying. All you do is lie. That's what that dualism is. A big lie. That's what organized crime, that's what the criminals do. They lie. They negatively influence other people. They self-destructive and destructive. All right. Now, dealing with Judaism. Judaism does not centralize authority in any single individual or group. The formulation of principles of faith that are universally recognized by all branches of Judaism remains undefined. There is no central authority in Judaism in existence today, although the Sanhedrin, the supreme Jewish religious court, would fulfill this role if it were reestablished instead. Instead, Judaism's principal faith remains debated by the rabbis based on their understanding of the sacred writings, laws, and traditions, which collectively shape its theological and ethical framework. The most accepted version in extent is the opinion of Maimonides. Now, we over here on Wikipedia, so let me scroll down. Let me scroll down to the references. 56 references. Further reading. Okay. Like I said, we on Wikipedia and the principle of faith. The Jewish principles of faith. So we over here on Wikipedia. We're going to point some things out. Because we got to establish a foundation on monotheism. Now, Judaism affirms the existence and uniqueness of God and stresses performance of deeds or commandments alongside adherence to a strict belief system. In contrast to religions such as Christianity, which demand a more explicit identification of God, faith in Judaism requires one to honor God through adherence to God's instructions, Torah, and the practice of all other mitzvah. Orthodox Judaism stresses a number of core principles in its educational program. Most importantly, a belief that there is one single, omniscient, transcendent, non-compound God who created the universe and continues to be concerned with its governance. Traditional Judaism maintained that God established a covenant with the Jewish people at Mount Sinai and revealed his laws and 613 commandments to them in the form of the written and oral Torah. In Rabbinic Judaism, the Torah consists of both the written Torah, Pentateuch, and a tradition of oral law, much of it later codified in sacred writings. You had to see the Mishnah or Talmud. And now the Mishnah is the first major written collection of the Jewish oral traditions that are known as the oral Torah. It is also the first major work of rabbinic literature, with the oldest surviving material dating to the 6th to the 7th centuries BCE. And you have the Talmud. Talmud is the central text of rabbinic Judaism and the primary source of Jewish religious law, halakha, and Jewish theology. Until the advent of modernity, in nearly all Jewish communities, the Talmud was the centerpiece of Jewish cultural life and was foundation to all Jewish communities. The Talmud was the centerpiece of Jewish cultural life and was foundation to all Jewish thought and aspiration, serving also to the guide for the daily life of Jews. Okay. Now, traditionally, the practice of Judaism has been devoted to the study of Torah and observance of its laws and commandments. In normative Judaism, the Torah and hence Jewish law itself is unchanged, but interpretation of the law is more open. It is considered a mitzvah, commandment to study and understand the law. The proper counterpart for the general English term faith, as occurring in the expression principle of faith, would be the concept of emunah. In Judaism, the word amen comes from this word and means I trust, believe. While it is generally translated as faith or trust in God, the concept of emunah can more accurately be described as an innate conviction, a perception of trust that transcends reason. Emunah can be enhanced through wisdom, knowledge, understanding, and learning of sacred Jewish writing. But emunah is not simply based on reason, nor can it be understood as the opposite of or standing in contrast to reason. There are a number of basic principles that were formulated by medieval rabbinic authorities. These are put forth as fundamental underpinnings inherent in the acceptance and practice of Judaism. Now, the conception of God, monotheism. Judaism is based on a strict monotheism and a belief in one single, indivisible, non-compound God. The Shema Yisrael, one of the most important Jewish prayers, encapsulates the monotheistic nature of Judaism. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. Judaism emphatically rejects any concept of plurality with respect to God, explicitly rejecting polytheism, dualism, and Trinitarianism, which are incompatible with monotheism as Judaism understands it. The unity of God is stated many times in Jewish tradition. It is the second of Maimonides' 13 Principles of Faith. Maimonides wrote that this God is one, not two or more than two, but one, whose unity is different from all other unities that there are. He is not one as a genus, which contains many species, is one, nor is he one as a body containing parts and dimensions, is one, but his is a unity, that which there is no other anywhere. Yad, Yisoda, HaTorah, 1:7. In Jewish tradition, dualistic and Trinitarian conceptions of God are generally referred to as shituf, partnership, meaning an incorrect but not an idolatrous view. God is the creator of the universe. Most Jews believe that God is creator of the universe. Different sets of Jews view this in different ways. For example, some ultra-Orthodox groups reject the concept of evolution and believe the earth to be only a few thousand years old. Other groups of Orthodox and non-Orthodox Jews do not believe in a literal interpretation of the genus creation narrative. And according to that view, Judaism is not in contradiction to the scientific model that states that the age of the universe is around 13.77 billion years old. Norbert M. Samuelson writes, the question of dating the universe has never been a problem of Jewish philosophy, ultimately because that philosophy has never taken the literal meaning of the Bible to be its revealed true meaning. While the general Jewish attitude has been that God created the world ex nihilo, Rabbi Mark D. Engel writes that historically there has been a general reluctance in Jewish tradition to speculate on the metaphysical aspects of creation. The important statement for Judaism is that God did in fact create the world, an evolutionary process that did not simply happen by itself, but was set into motion by God. While the Bible speaks of God creating the world in 6 days, it may be speaking figuratively. The word yom, day, in the creation story can hardly be proved to be referring to a day of 24 hours. After all, the sun itself was not created until the fourth day. So it is impossible to argue that the first 3 days were days as we know them. A more appropriate way to understand the creation story is that God created the universe in 6 stages, and each of these stages may have taken millions of years, or 24 hours, or an instance. In short, Judaism insists that God created the world, that he created it in stages, and that he continues to maintain the universe which he created. The specific details of the creation process are not central to Jewish thought. Moses Maimonides, 12th century, wrote that by virtue of the existence of the Creator, everything exists, and that time itself is part of creation. And therefore, when God is described as existing before the creation of the universe, the notion of time should not be understood in its normal sense. The 15th century Jewish philosopher Joseph Albo argued similarly in his Ikarim that there are 2 types of time. Measured time, which depends on motion, and time in the abstract, the second of which has no origin and is the infinite space of time before the universe was created. Abel argued that although it is difficult to conceive of God existing in such a duration, it is likewise difficult to imagine God outside space. Other Jewish writers have come to different conclusions, such as 13th century scholar Beya ben Asher, 16th century scholar Moses Amosino, and the 18th century Hasidic teacher Naaman of Breslev, who expressed a view similar to that expressed by the Christian Neoplatonic writer Boethius, that God lives in the eternal present and transcends or is above all time. Now, the nature of God. The Jewish view is that God is eternal, with neither beginning nor end, a principle stated in a number of biblical passages. The rabbis taught a quite literal, down-to-earth view of the eternalness of God, that God is eternal, but it is not given to man to explore the full meaning of this idea. And so, one cannot therefore expect to find in the rabbinic literature anything like a detailed examination of what is meant by divine eternity. A famous Mishnah statement on attempts to pierce the veil is this: whoever reflects on four things, it were better for him that he had not come into the world. What is above, what is beneath, what is before, and what is after. The traditional Jewish view is that God is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent. Various Jewish thinkers, however, have proposed a finite God, sometimes in response to the problem of evil and ideas about free will. Louis Jacobs writes that modern Jewish thinkers such as Levi Olin, echoing some classical Jewish writers such as the 14th century Talmudist Gersonides, have thought of God as limited by his own nature, so that while he is infinite in some respects, he is finite in others, referencing the idea present in classical sources that there is a primal, formless material coexisting with God from all eternity, upon which God has to work, and that God only knows the future in a general sense, but not how individual men will exercise their choice. On the topic of omniscience and free will, Jacobs writes that in the medieval period, three views were put forth. Maimonides, who wrote that God had foreknowledge and man is free. Gersonides, who wrote that man is free and consequently God does not have complete knowledge. And Hasadeh Krekus, who wrote in or Adane that God has complete foreknowledge and consequently man is not really free. Several Jewish writers have dealt with the issue of theodicy, whether and how God is all powerful and all good, given the existence of evil in the world, particularly the Holocaust. John D. Levinson argues that omnipotence doctrine fails to give due regard to the formidability and resilience of the forces counteracting creation, such as the primordial state of chaos existing before creation, and leads to a neglect of the role of humanity in forming and stating the world order. Hans Jonas proposed a tentative myth that God chose in the beginning to give God's self over to the chance and risk and endless variety of becoming, entering into the adventure of space and time. Jonas expressed the view that God does not create the world by fiat, although God does create the world, but leads it by beckoning it into novel possibilities of becoming. Jonas, who was influenced by the Holocaust experience, believed that God is omnipresent, but not in all respects non-temporal, impassible, immutable, and unqualified omnipotent. Most of classical Judaism views God as a personal God. Rabbi Samuel S. Cohen wrote that God has conceived by Judaism is not only the first cause, the creative power, and the world reason, but also the living and loving Father of men. He is not only cosmic, but also personal. Jewish monotheism thinks of God in terms of definite character or personality, while pantheism is content is content with a view of God as impersonal. This is shown in the Jewish liturgy, such as in the Adon Olam hymn, which includes a confident affirmation that He is my God, my living God, who hears and answers. Edward Kiesler writes that Hebrew Bible portrays an encounter with a God who cares passionately and who addresses humanity in the quiet moments of its existence. British Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks suggests that God is not distant in time or detached, but passionately engaged and present. The predicate, personal, as applied to God, does not mean that God is corporeal or anthropomorphic, views which Judaism has always rejected. Rather, personality refers not to physicality, but to inner essence, psychical, rational, and moral. Although most Jews believe that God can be experienced, it is understood that God cannot be understood because God is utterly unlike humankind, as shown in God's response to Moses. When Moses asked for God's name, I am that I am. All anthropomorphic statements about God are understood as linguistic metaphors, otherwise it would be impossible to talk about God at all. Although the dominant strain in Judaism is that God is personal, there is an alternate stream of tradition exemplified by Maimonides, who, along with several other Jewish philosophers, rejected the idea of a personal God. This reflected his belief in negative theology, that God can only be described by what God is not. Rabbi Mordecai Kaplan, who developed Reconstructionist Judaism and taught at the Conservative Jewish Theological Seminary of America, also rejected the idea of a personal God. Kaplan instead thought of God as a force like gravity, but built into the very structure of the universe, believing that since the universe is constructed to enable us to gain personal happiness and communal solidarity when we act morally, it follows that there is a moral force in the universe. This force is what the constructionists mean by God. Although some Reconstructionists do believe in a personal God, according to Joseph Telushkin and Morris and Kester, Kaplan's rationalist rejection of the traditional Jewish understanding of God exerted a powerful influence on many conservative and reform rabbis, influencing many to stop believing in a personal God. According to the Pew Forum on Religion and Public Life 2008 U.S. Religious Landscape Survey, Americans who identify as Jewish by religion are twice as likely to favor ideas of God as an impersonal force over the idea that God is a person with whom people can have a relationship. Now, when it comes to the soul devotion to the Creator, within Judaism, the essence of worship is deeply rooted in the belief of monotheism, emphasizing the exclusive devotion to the Creator. This principle dictates that worship and reverence should be directed solely towards God, is articulated by Maimonides' fifth principle of faith. According to this belief, no entity aside from the Creator is deemed worthy of worship. And when it comes to the revelation, the script, the Hebrew Bible or Tanakh, is the Jewish scriptural canon and central source of Jewish law. The word is an acronym formed from the initial Hebrew letters of the three traditional subdivisions of the Tanakh, the Torah, teaching, also known as the 5 books of Moses or Pentateuch, the Nevi'im, prophets, and the Ketuvim, writings. The Tanakh contains 24 books in all. Its authoritative version is the Masoretic text. Traditionally, the text of the Tanakh was said to have been finalized at the Council of Jamnia in 70 CE. Although this is uncertain, in Judaism, the term Torah refers not only to the 5 books of Moses, but also to all of the Jewish scriptures, the whole of Tanakh, and the ethical and moral instruction of the rabbis, the oral Torah. In addition to the Tanakh, there are 2 further textual traditions in Judaism: Mishnah, tractates expounding on Jewish law, and the Talmud, commentary of Mishnah and Torah. These are both codifications and redactions of the Jewish oral tradition and major works in rabbinic Judaism. The Talmud consists of the Babylonian Talmud, produced in Babylon around 600 CE, and the Jerusalem Talmud, produced in the land of Israel circa 400 CE. The Babylonian Talmud is the more extensive of the two and is considered the more important. The Talmud is a representation of the Torah through sustained analysis and argument with unfolding dialogue and contention between rabbinic sages. The Talmud consists of the Mishnah, a legal code, and the Gemara, Aramaic for learning, and analysis and commentary to that code. Rabbi Adin Stansos writes that if the Bible is the cornerstone of Judaism, then the Talmud is the central pillar. No other work has had a comparable influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life, shaping influence on the theory and practice of Jewish life and states. The Talmud is the repository of thousands of years of Jewish wisdom and the oral law, which is as ancient and significant as the written law, the Torah, finds expression therein. It is a conglomerate of law, legend, and philosophy, a blend of unique logic and shrewd pragmatism, of history and science, anecdotes and humor. Although its main objective is to interpret and comment on a book of law, it is simultaneously a work of art that goes beyond legislation and its practical application. And although the Talmud is, to this day, the primary source of Jewish law, it cannot be cited as an authority for purposes of ruling. Though based on the principle of tradition and the transmission of authority from generation to generation, it is unparalleled in its eagerness to question and re-examine convention and accepted views and to root out underlying cause. The Talmudic method of discussion and demonstration tries to approximate mathematical precision, but without having recourse to mathematical or logical symbols. The Talmud is the embodiment of the great concept of mitzvah, Talmud Torah, the positive religious duty of studying Torah, of acquiring learning and wisdom, study which is its own end and reward. Now, Moses and the Torah. Orthodox and conservative Jews hold that the prophecy of Moses is held to be true. He is held to be the chief of all prophets, even of those who came before and after him. This belief was expressed by Maimonides, who wrote that Moses was superior to all prophets, whether they preceded him or arose afterwards. Moses attained the highest possible human level. He perceived God to a degree surpassing every human that ever existed. God spoke to all other prophets through an intermediary. Moses alone did not need this. This is what the Torah means when God said, mouth to mouth, I will speak to him. The great Jewish philosopher Philo understands this type of prophecy to be an extraordinarily high level of philosophical understanding which had been reached by Moses and which enabled him to write the Torah through his own rational deduction of natural law. Maimonides described a similar concept of prophecy. Since a voice that did not originate from a body cannot exist, the understanding of Moses was based on his lofty philosophical understanding. However, this does not imply that the text of the Torah should be understood literally, as according to charisma, rabbinic tradition maintained that God conveyed not only the words of the Torah, but the meaning of the Torah. God gave rules as to how the law was to be understood and implemented, and these were passed down as an oral tradition. This oral law was passed down from generation to generation and ultimately written down almost 2,000 years later in the Mishnah and the two Talmuds. For Reformed Jews, the prophecy of Moses was not the highest degree of prophecy, rather it was the first in a long chain of progressive revelation in which mankind gradually began to understand the will of God better and better. As such, they maintain that the laws of Moses are no longer binding, and it is today's generation that must assess what God wants of them. This principle is also rejected by most Reconstructionist Jews, but for a different reason. Most posit that God is not a being with a will. Thus, they maintain that no will can be revealed. The origin of the Torah. The Torah is composed of 5 books called in English Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. They chronicle the history of the Hebrews and also contain the commandments that Jews ought to follow. Rabbinic Judaism holds that the Torah, extant today, is the same one that was given to Moses by God on Mount Sinai. Maimonides explained, "We do not know exactly how the Torah was transmitted to Moses, but when it was transmitted, Moses merely wrote it down, like a secretary taking dictation. Thus, every verse in the Torah is equally holy, as they all originate from God, and are all part of God's Torah, which is perfect, holy, and true." Haredi Jews generally believe that the Torah today is no different from what it was received from God to Moses, with only the most minor of scribal errors. Many other Orthodox Jews suggest that over the millennia, some scribal errors have crept into the Torah's text. They note that Masoretes, 7th to 10th centuries, compared all known Torah variations in order to create a definitive text. However, even according to this position, that the scrolls that Jews possess today are not letter perfect. The Torah scrolls are certainly the word perfect textus receptus that was divinely revealed to Moses. Indeed, the general consensus of Orthodox rabbinic thought posit this belief in the word perfect nature of the Torah scroll as a defining feature of Orthodox Judaism. Although even in modern Orthodox circles, there are some rabbis, Professor Mark Shapiro, that point out the numerous rabbinic sources from the Talmudic, post-Talmudic, and medieval ages that claim that there were some changes to the text, which include whole verses that were made deliberately during the Messianic era and even during the times of the First Temple. Professor Shapiro lists the many medieval rabbis discuss changes and additions that occurred during the time of Ezra, the scribe, in his work, The Limits of Orthodox Theology, Maimonides' 13 Principles, reappraised. When it comes to prophecy, Jews believe that the Almighty Creator at times chooses to prophesy. Many of such occurrences are described in the Nevi'im, the books of the prophets. However, since the destruction of the First Temple, prophecy has ceased. Oratory. Orthodox Jews view the written and oratory as the same as Moses taught. For all practical purposes, conservative Jews tend to believe that much of the oral law is divinely inspired, while Reform and Reconstructionist Jews tend to view all of the oral law as an entirely human creation. Traditionally, the Reform movement held that Jews were obliged to obey the ethical but not the ritual commandments of Scripture. Although today many Reform Jews have adopted many traditional ritual practices, Haredi Jews traditionally consider the written Torah to be authoritative, viewing the oral law as only one possible interpretation of the written Torah. Most modern Orthodox Jews will agree that while certain laws within the oral law were given to Moses, most of the Talmudic laws were derived organically by the rabbis of the Messianic and Talmudic eras. God's relationship with men. Judaism focuses more on how God defined men than one trying to define God. There is therefore a focus on what people are expected to be or do far more than on spelling out theological beliefs. People are born with both a tendency to do good and to do evil. Jewish tradition mostly emphasizes free will, and most Jewish thinkers reject determinism on the basis that free will and the exercise of free choice have been considered a precondition of moral law, of moral life. Moral indeterminacy seems to be assumed both by the Bible, which binds man to choose between good and evil, and by the rabbis, who hold the decision for following the good inclination rather than the evil rests with every individual. Maimonides asserted the compatibility of free will with foreknowledge of God. Only a handful of Jewish thinkers have expressed deterministic views. This group includes the medieval Jewish philosopher Hesday Crescus and the 19th century Hasidic Rabbi Mordecai Yosef Leiner of Izbika. All is necessary for God because he is perfect, but for mankind all is possible by virtue of choice. The two types of view are true with knowing about the prophet who is in devacut with God to be wise and to perform miracles for him. Judaism affirms that people are born with both a Yisr Hatov, an inclination or impulse to do good, and with a Yisr Hara, an inclination or impulse to do evil. These phrases reflect the concept that within each person there are opposing natures continually in conflict, in our reference many times in the rabbinic tradition. The rabbis even recognize the positive value to the Yetzer Hara. Without the Yetzer Hara, there would be no civilization or other fruits of human labor. Midrash states, without the evil inclination, no one would father a child, build a house, or make a career. The implication is that Yetzer Hatov and Yetzer Hara are best understood not only as moral categories of good and evil, but as the inherent conflict within man between selfless and selfish orientations. Judaism recognizes two classes of sin: offenses against other people and offenses against God. Offenses against God may be understood as violation of a contract, the covenant between God and the children of Israel. Once a person has sinned, there are various means by which they may obtain atonement. Judaism rejects the belief in original sin. Both ancient and modern Judaism teaching that every person is responsible for his own action. The existence of some innate sinfulness on each human being was discussed in both biblical Genesis 8:21 and Psalms 51:5 in post-biblical sources. However, in the biblical verses, this is brought as an argument for divine mercy, as humans cannot be blamed for the nature they were created with. Some apocryphal and pseudepigraphic sources express pessimism about human nature. A grain of evil seed was sown in Adam's heart from the beginning, and the Talmud, Avodah Zarah, has an unusual passage which Edward Kiesler described as the serpent seduced Eve in paradise, impregnated her with spiritual, physical dirt, which was inherited through the generation. But the revelation at Sinai and the reception of the Torah cleansed Israel. Kiesler states that although it is clear that belief in some form of original sin did exist in Judaism, it did not become mainstream teaching nor dogmatically fixed, but remained at the margins of Judaism. Now, reward and punishment. The mainstream Jewish view is that God will reward those who observe his commandments and punish those who intentionally transgress them. Examples of rewards and punishment are described throughout the Bible and throughout classical rabbinic literature. The common understanding of this principle is accepted by most Orthodox and conservative and many Reformed Jews. It is generally rejected by the Reconstruction. See also free will and theology, Judaism. The Bible contains reference to Sheol, literal gloom, as the common destination of the dead, which may be compared with the Hades or underworld of ancient religion. In later tradition, this is interpreted either as hell or as a literary expression for death or the grave in general. According to a Gaelic passage in the Talmud, God judges who has followed his command and who does not, and to what extent. Those who do not pass the test go to a purifying place, sometimes referred to as Gehinnom, hell, but more analogous to the Christian purgatory, to learn their lesson. There is, however, for the most part, no eternal damnation. The vast majority of souls only go to that reforming place for a limited amount of time. Less than 1 year. Certain categories are spoken of as having no part in the world to come, but this appears to mean annihilation rather than an eternity of torment. Physical Philosophical rationalists such as Maimonides believe that God did not actually mete out rewards and punishment. And so, in this view, these were beliefs that were necessary for the masses to believe in order to maintain a structured society and to encourage the observance of Judaism. However, once one learned Torah properly, one could then learn the higher truth. In this view, the nature of the reward is that if a person perfected his intellect to the highest degree, then the part of his intellect that connected to God, the active intellect, would be immortalized and enjoy the glory of the present for all eternity. The punishment would simply be that this would not happen. No part of one's intellect would be immortalized with God. Then you had to go see divine providence in Jewish thought. The Kabbalah, mystical tradition in Judaism, contains further elaboration, though some Jews do not consider these authoritative. For example, it admits the possibility of reincarnation, which is generally rejected by non-mystical Jewish theologians and philosophers. It also believes in a triple soul, of which the lowest level, nephesh or animal life, dissolves into the elements. The middle layer, ruach or intellect, goes to Gan Eden paradise, while the highest level, neshama or spirit, seeks union with God. Some Jews consider tikkun olam, or repairing the world, as a fundamental motivating factor in Jewish ethics. Therefore, the concept of life after death in the Jewish view is not encouraged as the motivating factor in performance of Judaism. Indeed, it is held that one can attain closer to God even in this world through moral and spiritual perfection. All right. Israel, chosen for a purpose. God chose the Jewish people to be in a unique covenant with God. The description of this covenant is the Torah itself. God further declared in the Torah through prophecy to Moses that his firstborn is the Israelites. However, closeness and being chosen does not imply exclusivity, as anyone can join and convert. Included in the idea of being chosen is that Jews were chosen for a specific mission, a duty to be a light unto the nations and to have a covenant with God as described in the Torah. Rabbi Lord Emmanuel Jacobitz, former chief rabbi of the United Synagogue of Great Britain, described the mainstream Jewish view on this issue. Yes, I do believe that the chosen people concept, as affirmed by Judaism in its holy writ, its prayers, and its millennial tradition. In fact, I believe that every people, and indeed in a more limited way, every individual is chosen or destined for some distinct purpose in advancing the designs of providence. Only some fulfill their mission and others do not. Maybe the Greeks were chosen for their unique contribution to art and philosophy, the Romans for their pioneering services in law and government, the British for bringing parliamentary rule into the world, and the Americans for piloting democracy in a pluralistic society. The Jews were chosen by God to be peculiar unto me as the pioneers of religion and morality. That was and is their national purpose. The Messiah. Judaism acknowledges an afterlife, but does not have a single or systemic way of thinking about the afterlife. Judaism places its overwhelming stress on Olam Hazeh, this world, rather than Olam Haba, the world to come. And speculations about the world to come are peripheral to mainstream Judaism. In Pirkei Avot, Ethics of the Father, it is said that 1 hour of penitence and good deeds in this world is better than all the life of the world to come. But 1 hour of spiritual repose in the world to come is better than all the life of this world, reflecting both a view of the significance of life on earth and the spiritual repose granted to the righteous in the next world. Jews reject the idea that Jesus of Nazareth was the Messiah and agree that the Messiah has not yet come. Throughout Jewish history, there have been a number of Jewish Messiah claimants considered false by Jews, including most notably Simon Bar Kokhba and Sabbatai Zibai, whose father was known as Sabbateans. The 12th of Maimonides' 13 principles of faith was, I believe, with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah. And though he may tarry, still I await him every day. Orthodox Jews believe that a future Jewish Messiah, anointed one, will be a king who will rule the Jewish people independently and according to Jewish law. In a traditional view, the Messiah was understood to be a human descendant of King David, that is, of the Davidic line. Liberal or Reformed Judaism does not believe in the arrival of a personal Messiah who will ingather the exiles in the land of Israel and cause the physical restoration of the dead. Rather, Reformed Jews focus on a future age in which there is a perfected world of justice and mercy. Now, we want to establish monotheism, a foundation. Now, I'm going to click over here. Now we over here on Wikipedia. I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom. All right, let me scroll down to the bottom here. All right, see also footnotes. 46, and then the bibliography and external links. Okay. Dualism in cosmology. Dualism in cosmology, or dualistic cosmology, is the moral or spiritual belief that two fundamental concepts exist, which often oppose each other. It is an umbrella term that covers a diversity of views from various religions, including both traditional religions and scriptural religions. Now, like I said, we're trying to establish a foundation on monotheism. You know, Holy Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, Holy Bible. You got people that believe in Judaism, and then you have those like myself who believe, who have faith in the historical Jesus as being the Messiah. Now, when I was growing up, my mom and dad, you know, raised in the Church of Christ. I don't want to hear that nonsense. Because, see, I see now there's some nonsense. The Catholic Church is the church. And all that Protestant stuff, all that Martin Luther, and trying to use heresiology, you know, you're a criminal. And the Catholic Church already proved beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no doubt that Martin Luther was a heretic, a criminal. Him and his followers. See, that's what you have to always remember about people like Martin Luther. You know, you put him out in front, and then the Catholic Church identified Martin Luther and all this nonsense he bring up. Like, for example, the 99 Thesis. He gets proven to be a heretic. And all that junk that he brought up, the 99 Thesis and anything else he brought up, is getting refuted. Being a Gnostic. You know what I mean? You know, being a heresy. It's a heresy. So the Catholic Church already proved it. Just like Gnosticism proved it's a heresy. The criminals, organized crime, they don't care that the Catholic Church proved that Gnosticism was a heresy. They don't care that the Catholic Church proved that Martin Luther was a heretic. They're gonna just their driving force is money. Their motivation is money. That's all they care about. They don't care who, what, where, when, why, who they got to oppress, or how they got to oppress, whatever. They want to put themselves on top. They want to be the king and the queen. They want to be the emperor and the empress. You know what I'm saying? They want to be on top of everybody else. So they made up all this so-called Gnostic nonsense. That's the reason why you can't find no history of it. That's the reason why you can't find no history beyond BCE. Then all of a sudden you get to the first and you start talking about the historical Jesus. And then all of a sudden you got this group of people who were identified by the church fathers being Jews. They were identified being Jews. Some heretics. They were heretics. Going around talking about some Gnosticism. Then trying to blend in all this. They tried to take the demiurge from the philosophy and throw that in with the Old Testament and the New Testament. And see, it's so messed up that when you talk about the New Testament wasn't revealed all this in one time. See, this is how you had to understand what you're talking about. The New Testament wasn't revealed all at the same time. So when they would be trying to blend in, the Catholic Church already refuted. You already been proven to be a heretic. You tried to talk about Jesus in general terms. You tried to take the angel. You tried to take, in a little bit, because the New Testament was not revealed all at one time. So you couldn't take information from the New Testament because it wasn't revealed all at the same time. But you took what little information was available and you tried to use that and tried to misuse that. The New Testament was not revealed at the same time. It was different times when the New Testament was revealed. But talking about the Messiah, and then you had the historical Jesus, and then you was hearing about the historical Jesus from his followers, his disciples. Then you start talking about, in general terms, God included in the Gnostic literature, but the New Testament itself was not even revealed at the same time. And so all this dualism that you talking about, Gnosticism ain't nothing but organized crime. Some criminals. They ain't nothing but some criminals making up stuff. They just made it up. Now, moral dualism is the belief of the great complement of or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent. It simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral and independent of how these may be represented. Moral opposites might, for example, exist in a worldview that has one God, more than one God, or none. By contrast, duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism implies at least two gods, while bitheism implies harmony. Okay. While bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, or light and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheistic system could be one in which one God is a creator and the other a destroyer. In theology, dualism can also refer to the relationship between the deity and creation, or the deity and the universe. See theistic dualism. That form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Alternatively, in ontological dualism, the world is divided into two overarching categories. Within Chinese culture and philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universe's two basic principles are expressed as yin and yang and are traditionally foundational doctrine of Taoism, Confucianism, and some Chinese Buddhist schools. Many myths and creation motifs with dualistic cosmology have been described in ethnographic and anthropologic literature. The motifs conceive the world as being created, organized, or influenced by two demiurges, cultural heroes, or other mythological beings who compete with each other or have a complementary function in creating, arranging, or influencing the world. There is a huge diversity of such cosmologies. In some cases, such as among the Chukchi, the beings collaborate rather than compete, and they contribute to the creation in a co-equal way. In many other instances, the two beings are not of the same importance or power. Sometimes one of them is even characterized as gullible. Sometimes they can be contrasted as good versus evil. They may be often believed to be twins or at least brothers. Dualistic motives and mythologies can be observed in all inhabited continents. Zolotarjov concludes that they cannot be explained by diffusion or borrowing, but are rather of convergent origin. They are related to a dualistic organization of society. Moiety. All right. In some cultures, the social organization may have ceased to exist, but mythology preserves the memory in more and more disguised ways. Moral dualism. Moral dualism. Moral dualism is the belief of the great complement or conflict between the benevolent and the malevolent, like ditheism or bitheism. Moral dualism does not imply the absence of monists. Excuse me. Monism attributes oneness or singleness to a concept such as to existence, right? Or monotheistic principles. Moral dualism simply implies that there are two moral opposites at work, independent of any interpretation of what might be moral, and unlike ditheism and bitheism, independent of how these may be represented. For example, Mazdaism or Mazdian Zoroastrianism is both dualistic and monotheistic, but not monist by definition, since in that philosophy God, the creator, is purely good, and the antithesis which is also uncreated is an absolute one. Mandaism is monotheistic and Gnostic, and in its cosmology, the world of light that is good is contrasted with the world of darkness or underworld that is evil. Zurvanism, Zurvanite Zoroastrianism, and Manichaeism are representative of dualistic and monist philosophy, since each has a supreme and transcendental first principle from which the two equal but opposite entities then emanate. This is also true for the lesser known Christian Gnostic religions such as Bogomils and Catharism, and so on. More complex forms of monist dualism also exist. For instance, in Hermetism, where Nous thought that is described to have created man brings forth both good and evil, dependent on interpretation, whether it receives prompting from the god or from the demon. Duality with pluralism is considered a logical fallacy. There ain't no such thing as no Christian Gnosticism. I'm just going to make sure you don't try that. It ain't no such thing as no Christian Gnostic. Because first of all, the Catholic Church, you ain't finna mix no Catholic with Gnostic. And no Gnostic with Catholic. And then talking about, there you go again, talking about this Protestant. See, when you put the Catholic Church first, and you most certainly ain't finna talk about no Jewish Gnostic. There ain't no such thing. Don't you see me sitting here talking about dualism? And before we started talking about dualism, we were talking about monotheism. It ain't no way. It ain't no way. When you say something about some Jewish, the only thing you can bring up is Jewish mysticism. And that ain't no Gnostic. See, this what you try to do. This what the criminals do. This is what organized crime try to do. You try to take information and distort it. And then you try to use violence. Because when you try to distort information, the people in Judaism, they reject you. They already told you a heretic. So what you do? So what do the criminals do? They try to be violent. That's what the historians are already telling you about destruction of the temple and all these things. You try to be violent. And the same thing with the Catholic Church. You can even read about it in the book of Acts. You try to be violent, persecuting the Christians, persecuting the followers of Jesus. You try to use violence. When the disciples of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, they rejected. When Saint Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, together with Saint Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch, what did you do to Saint Ignatius? You throw him out there in the arena to laugh at him. They put Saint Ignatius in the arena to be killed by tigers, by animals. And they laughed at this man. But that's what they was trying to do, be violent. You ain't proof. You didn't come to the front with your belief. So what you do? You be violent. See, this what organized crime do. You just be violent. Just be violent. And same thing with talking about being a Gnostic Christian, a Christian not. There's no such thing. The Bogomils. And who else? Who is this? The Bogomils and the Cathars. The Bogomil was a Christian neo-Gnostic dualist. How you gonna be a Christian? Our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was no Gnostic. The 12 apostles wasn't no Gnostic. You ain't making no sense. Neo-Gnostic dualist said founded in the first Bulgarian Empire by the priest Bogomil during the reign of Tsar Peter I in the 10th century. Okay. In the 10th century. Okay. The Cathars was a Christian quasi-dualist or pseudo-Gnostic. See, you keep taking, see, this with the criminals. These people ain't no more criminals. Cathars, pseudo-Gnostic movement which thrived in southern Europe, particularly in northern Italy and southern France between the 12th and 14th centuries, denounced as a heretical sect by the Catholic Church. Its followers were attacked first by the Albigensian Crusaders, and so on. Man, these people ain't number. That's what the rest of these people did. The so-called, a lot of you Protestants, see, you be trying to do the same daggum thing. You try to disguise your ignorance. You try to disguise your ignorance. But you ain't no different than the Bogomils and the Cathars. But you see the time period, the Bogomils, over there in First Bulgarian Empire, by the first Bogomil during the reign of Tsar Peter I in the 10th century. See, that's where a lot of that stuff, Martin Luther. See, these people ain't number criminals, man. They ain't number organized crime. And again, I want to just point this out about Martin Luther. See, don't never think that you can fool people. No, and I say that in general because just like I had access to information, other people have access to information. And see, Martin Luther wasn't by himself. When you look up the history of Martin Luther and where he was teaching and all this kind of stuff, he wasn't by himself. And see, you had Martin Luther, but before Martin Luther, you had other Protestant reformers. And see, a lot of ideas and things came into his mind. And then Martin Luther called, talking about some 95 theses. Now I just want to bring this up. Now, Frederick III, the Elector of Saxony, was Prince-Elector of Saxony from 1486 to 1521, who is mostly remembered for the protection given to his subject, Martin Luther, the seminal figure of the Protestant Reformation. Frederick was the son of Ernst, Elector of Saxony, and his wife, Elizabeth, daughter of Albert III, Duke of Bavaria. He is noted as being one of the most powerful early defenders of Martin Luther, as the Elector successfully protected him from the Holy Roman Empire, the Pope, and other hostile figures. He was ostensibly led not by religious conviction about the possible truthfulness of Luther's proposition, but rather by personal belief in a fair trial for any of his subjects, a privilege guaranteed by the imperial statutory law and the rule of law. The Prince-Elector is considered to have remained a Roman Catholic all his life, yet gradually inclining toward doctrines of the Reformation and supposedly converting on his deathbed. He is held in high regard by Protestant and church history and officially commemorated as an exemplary Christian ruler in the calendar of saints of the American Lutheran Church. And now, we just want to put this in there. See, we want you to see Martin Luther, but we want you to see all these. You see how this other man is? He was also involved in it. See, this is what we want you. We don't, myself as well. Don't leave these other people out. Martin Luther, an Augustinian friar, was ordained to the priesthood in 1507, and on the following year, in 1508, he began teaching theology at the University of Wittenberg, which was located in the electorate of Saxony, inside the territory ruled by Prince-Elector Frederick III. This is where Martin Luther was getting these ideas from. Therefore, Luther was a subject of the elector by living in his domains. Luther received 2 bachelor's degrees, one in biblical studies on 9 March, and another in the sentences by Peter Lombard in 1509. On October 9th, on 19 October 1512, he was awarded his Doctor of Theology. And then on October 21st, 1512, Luther was received into the Senate of the Theological Faculty of the University of Wittenberg, succeeding von Staupitz as chair of theology. He spent the rest of his career in his position at the University of Wittenberg. In 1515, he was made provincial vicar of Saxony and Thuringia, which required him to visit and oversee 11 monasteries in his province. Like I said, I wanted, let me see, from 1510 to 1520, Luther lectured on the Psalms and on the books of Hebrew, Romans, and Galatians. As he studied those portions of the Bible, he came to view the use of terms such as penance and righteousness by the Catholic Church in new ways. He became convinced that the church was corrupt in his ways and had lost sight of what he saw as several of the central truths of Christianity. The most important for Luther was the doctrine of justification, God's act of declaring a sinner righteous by faith alone through God's grace. He began to teach that salvation or redemption is a gift of God's grace, attainable only through faith in Jesus as the Messiah. This one and firm rock, which we call the doctrine of justification, he writes, is the chief article of the whole Christian doctrine, which comprehends the understanding of all godliness. After a while, Luther came to reject several teachings and practices of the Roman Catholic Church. In particular, he disputed the view of indulgence. Luther attempted to resolve these differences amicably, first proposing an academic discussion of his practice and efficacy. In 1516, Johann Tessel, a Dominican friar, was sent to Germany by the Roman Catholic Church to sell the dungeon to raise money in order to rebuild St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. Then on October 31st, October 1517, Luther wrote to his bishop, Albrecht von Brandenburg, protesting against the sale of indulgence. He enclosed in his letter a copy of his disputation on the power and efficacy of indulgence, which came to be known as the 95 Theses. In 1520, Pope Leo X demanded that Luther renounce all his writings, and when Luther refused to do so, excommunicated him in January 1521. Then, to give him the right to a fair trial, Elector Frederick ensured that Martin Luther would be heard before the Diet of Worms in 1520. After Holy Roman Emperor Charles V condemned Luther as an outlaw at the Diet, the elector also secured an exemption from the Edict of Worms for Saxony. The elector then protected Luther from the Pope's enforcement of the edict by faking a highway attack on Luther's way back to Wittenberg, abducting and then hiding him for several years at Wartburg Castle after the Diet of Worms. Luther's disappearance during his return to Wittenberg was planned by Frederick III, who had him intercepted on his way home in the forest near Wittenberg by masked horsemen impersonating highway robbers. They escorted Luther to the security of the Wartburg Castle at Eisenach, where he remained disguised as Junker Georg. During his stay at Wartburg, which he referred to as my Patmos, Luther translated the New Testament from Greek into German and poured out doctrinal and polemical writings. In the summer of 1521, Luther widened his target from individual pieties like indulgence and pilgrimages to doctrines at the heart of church practice. And on the abrogation of the private mass, he condemned as idolatry the idea that the mass is a sacrifice of certain, instead that it is a gift to be received with thanksgiving by the whole congregation. His essay on confession, whether the Pope has the power to require it, rejected compulsory confession and encouraged private confession and absolution, since every Christian is a confessor. In November, Luther wrote the judgment of Martin Luther on monastic vows. He assured monks and nuns that they could break their vows without sin, because vows were an illegitimate and vain attempt to win salvation. And so, like I said, I ain't gonna go no further. But the only thing I want to make this clear, that Martin Luther, as you can see, Martin Luther won by himself. And what he was talking about, see, this is what the Catholic Church always show you. When you talk about the 95 Theses, the Catholic Church have made all kind of reforms, so they null and void anything you talking about. They null and void everything you talking about. Nothing that you say, the Catholic Church is still holding today. Nothing that you say about indulgence or anything else makes any sense, because you're a heretic. And see, this is what the Catholic Church, as well as Jews, they know that people, when you have information available, the criminals, organized crime, they'll distort information, and they go around being violent. The Old Testament was available. Organized crime, criminals, they take information and distort it. And that's what Gnostic is. It's a distortion. It's a big lie. And so, all right, getting back on this dualism here. Moral dualism. We're talking about the history. Moral dualism began as a theological belief. Dualism was first seen implicitly in Egyptian religion. Beliefs by the contrast of the gods Set, disorder, death, and Osiris, order, life. The first implicit conception of dualism came from the ancient Persian religion of Zoroastrianism around the mid-5th century BC. Zoroastrianism is a monotheistic religion that believes that Ahura Mazda is the eternal creator of all good things. Any violation of Ahura Mazda's order arises from Druj, which is everything uncreated. From this comes a significant choice for humans to make. Either they fully participate in human life for Ahura Mazda, or they do not, and give Druj power. Personal dualism is even more distinct in the beliefs of later religions. The religious dualism of Christianity between good and evil is not a perfect dualism, as God, good, will inevitably destroy Satan, evil. Early Christian dualism is largely based on Platonic dualism. See, Neoplatonism and Christianity. There is also a personal dualism in Christianity with a soul-body distinction based on the idea of an immaterial Christian soul. Duotheism, bitheism, ditheism. When used with regards to multiple gods, dualism may refer to duotheism, bitheism, or ditheism. Although ditheism and bitheism imply moral dualism, they are not equivalent. Ditheism and bitheism implies at least two gods, while moral dualism does not necessarily imply theism, theos equals God, at all. Both bitheism and ditheism imply a belief in two equally powerful gods with complementary or antonymous properties. However, while bitheism implies harmony, ditheism implies rivalry and opposition, such as between good and evil, bright and dark, or summer and winter. For example, a ditheistic system would be one in which one God is creative, the other is destructive. Theodicy. In the original conception of Zoroastrianism, for example, Ahura Mazda was the spirit of ultimate good, while Amraman Anger, mania was the spirit of ultimate evil. In a bitheistic system, by contrast, where the two deities are not in conflict or opposition, one could be male and the other female. Duotheism, one well-known example of a bitheistic or duotheistic theology based on gender polarity, is found in the neo-pagan religion of Wicca. In Wicca, dualism is represented in the belief of a god and a goddess as a dual partnership in ruling the universe. This is centered on the worship of a divine couple, the moon goddess and the horn god, who are regarded as lovers. However, there is also a ditheistic theme within traditional Wicca, as the horn god has dual aspects of bright and dark, relating to day, night, summer, winter, expressed as the oak king and the holy king, who in Wiccan myth and ritual are said to engage in battle twice a year for the hand of the goddess, resulting in the changing season. Within Wicca, bright and dark do not correspond to notions of good and evil, but are aspects of the natural world, much like yin and yang in Taoism. Now you have radical and mitigated dualism. Radical dualism, or absolute dualism, which posits two co-equal divine forces. Manichaeism conceives of two previously coexisting realms of light and dark, which became embroiled in conflict owing to the chaotic actions of the latter. Subsequently, certain elements of the light became entrapped within darkness. The purpose of material creation is to enact the slow process of extraction of these individual elements, at the end of which the kingdom of light will prevail over darkness. Manichaeism likely inherits this dualistic mythology from Zoroastrianism, in which the eternal spirit, or Ahura Mazda, is opposed by his antithesis, Angra Mainyu. The two are engaged in a cosmic struggle, the conclusion of which will likewise see Ahura Mazda triumphant. The hymn of the pearl included the belief that the material world corresponds to some sort of malevolent intoxication brought about by the powers of darkness to keep elements of the light trapped inside it in a state of drunken distraction. Mitigated dualism is where one of the two principles is in some way inferior to the other. Such classical Gnostic movements as the Sethians conceived of the material world as being created by a lesser divinity than the true God that was the object of their devotion. The spiritual world is conceived of as being radically different from the material world, coextensive with the true God in the true home of certain enlightened members of humanity. Thus, these systems were expressive of a feeling of acute alienation within the world, and their resulting aim was to allow the soul to escape the constraints presented by the physical realm. However, bitheistic and ditheistic principles are not always so easily contrastable. For instance, in a system where one god is the representative of summer and drought and the other of winter and rain, fertility, the mythology of Persephone, Martianism, and early Christian sect held that the Old and New Testament were the work of two opposing gods. Both were first principles, but of different religions. Now, theistic dualism. In theology, dualism can refer to the relationship between God and creation, or God and the universe. This form of dualism is a belief shared in certain traditions of Christianity and Hinduism. Zoroastrianism, or Mahayana, is one of the world's oldest continuously practiced religions, based on the teachings of the Iranian-speaking prophet Zoroaster. It has a dualistic cosmology of good and evil, and an eschatology which predicts the ultimate conquest of evil by good. Zoroastrianism exalts an uncreated and benevolent deity of wisdom known as Ahura Mazda, wise Lord, as its supreme being. Manichaeism was a major religion founded in the 3rd century A.D. by the Parthians. Prophet Meni, 216 and 274 AD in the Sasanian Empire. Manichaeism taught an elaborate dualistic cosmology describing the struggle between a good spiritual world of light and an evil material world of darkness. Through an ongoing process that takes place in human history, light is gradually removed from the world of matter and returned to the world of light, whence it came. Its beliefs were based on local Mesopotamian religious movements and Gnosticism. Now, in Christianity, the dualism between God and creation has existed as a central belief in multiple historical sets and traditions of Christianity, including Marcionism, Catharism, Paulicianism, and other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Now, Marcionism was an early Christian dualistic belief system that originated with the teachings of Marcion of Synod in Rome around 144 AD. Marcion was an early Christian theologian, evangelist, and an important figure in the early Christianity. Excuse me. All right, then you got Catharism. Was a Christian quasi-dualist or pseudo-Gnostic movement which thrived in southern Europe, particularly in northern Italy and southern France, between the 12th and 14th centuries. See, that was right before the wars that had been fought. See, this is when them dates started becoming important. Between the 12th and 14th century, you had these Cathars. Then you had people like Martin Luther coming around in the 15th century. Paulicians was a heretical medieval Christian sect which originated in Armenia in the 7th century. Followers of the sect were called Paulicians and referred to themselves as good Christians. And other forms of Gnostic Christianity. Christian dualism refers to the belief that God and creation are distinct but interrelated through an indivisible bond. However, Gnosticism is a diverse, syncretistic religious movement consisting of various belief systems, generally uniting in a belief in a distinction between a supreme, transcendent God and a blind, evil demiurge responsible for creating the material universe, thereby entrapping the divine spark within matter. Gnosticism is not limited to Christianity and also incorporates beliefs from other Abrahamic traditions such as early Jewish sects. That's all you're doing is incorporating information. That's all you're doing. Trying to misappropriate information, distort information, lying. In sets like the Cathars and the Paulicians, this is a dualism between the material world created by an evil God and a moral God. Historians divide Christian dualism into absolute dualism, which held that the good and evil gods were equally powerful, and mitigated dualism, which held that material evil was subordinate to the spiritual God. The belief by Christian theologians who adhere to a libertarian or compatibilist view of free will, that free will separates humankind from God, has also been characterized as a form of dualism. The theologian Leroy Stevens Rona compares the dualism of Christianity with the dualism that exists in Zoroastrianism and the Samkhya tradition of Hinduism. The theological use of the word dualism dates back to 1700 in a book that describes the dualism between good and evil. The tolerance of dualism ranges widely among the different Christian traditions. As a monotheistic religion, the conflict between dualism and monism has existed in Christianity since its inception. The 1912 Catholic Encyclopedia described that in the Catholic Church, the dualistic hypothesis of an eternal world existing side by side with God was, of course, rejected by the 13th century. But mind-body dualism was not. The problem of evil is difficult to reconcile with absolute monism and has prompted some Christian sects to veer towards dualism. Gnostic forms of Christianity were more dualistic, and some Gnostic tradition posited that the devil was separate from God as an independent deity. The Christian dualists of the Byzantine Empire, the Paulicians, were seen as Manichaean heretics by Byzantine theologians. This tradition of Christian dualism, founded by Constantine Sylvanus, argued that the universe was created through evil and separate from a moral God. The Cathars, a Christian set in southern France, believed that there was a dualism between two gods, one representing good and the other representing evil. Whether or not the Cathari possessed direct historical influence from ancient Gnostics is a matter of dispute, as the basic conceptions of Gnostic cosmology are to be found in Cathar beliefs, most distinctly in their notion of a lesser creator God. Though, unlike the 2nd century Gnostics, they did not apparently place any special relevance upon knowledge, gnosis, as an effective salvific force. In any case, the Roman Catholic Church denounced the Cathars as heretics and sought to crush the movement in the 13th century. The Albigensian Crusade was initiated by Pope Innocent III in 1208 to remove the Cathars from Languedoc in France, where they were known as Albigensians. The Inquisition, which began in 1233 under Pope Gregory IX, also targeted the Cathars. So there again, if you're trying to say that Gnostics and Christians can mix, the Catholic Church already showed you they do not tolerate. The Catholic Church does not tolerate Gnosticism. You keep being proven to be a heretic by the Catholic Church. So you can't mix Catholic Church and Gnostic. You can't do it. It's a historical fact. I'm sitting here reading. It's a historical fact. You cannot blend Catholic Church and Gnostic. So now we come to this Martin Luther. And see, all this stuff is prior to Martin Luther in 1512. See, it's people who knew about these things, just like Frederick III. He was a priest in the Catholic Church in Saxony. See, he knew about these things. And then Martin Luther was a theologian at this Wittenberg College. It's not like Martin Luther didn't have any knowledge of things that had been done in some of these other places, and about these precursors to the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther knew about it. Now, in Hinduism, in Dvaita Vedanta, school of Indian philosophy, espoused a dualism between God and the universe by theorizing the existence of two separate realities. The first and the more important reality is that of Shiva or Shakti or Vishnu or Brahman. Shiva or Shakti or Vishnu is the supreme self, God, the absolute truth of the universe, the independent reality. The second reality is that of dependent but equally real universe that exists with its own separate essence. Everything that is composed of the second reality, such as individual soul, jiva, matter, etc., exists with their own separate reality. The distinguishing factor of this philosophy, as opposed to Advaita Vedanta monistic conclusion of Vedas, is that God takes on a personal role and is seen as a real eternal entity that governs and controls the universe. Because the existence of individuals is grounded in the divine, they are depicted as reflections, images, or even shadows of the divine, but never in any way identical with the divine. Salvation, therefore, is described as the realization that all finite reality is essentially dependent on the Supreme. Now, we come to this ontological dualism. Alternatively, dualism can mean the tendency of humans to perceive and understand the world as being divided into two overarching categories. In this sense, it is dualistic when one perceives a tree as a thing separate from everything surrounding it. This form of ontological dualism exists in Taoism and Confucianism, and a foundational theory within traditional Chinese medicine. Beliefs that divide the universe into the complementary oppositions of yin and yang. In traditions such as classical Hinduism, Samkhya, Yoga, Vaishakika, and the latter Vedanta schools, which accepted the theory of gunas, Chinese Pure Land, and Zen, Buddhism, or Islamic Sufism. A key to enlightenment is transcending this sort of dualistic thinking without merely substituting dualism with monism or pluralism. In Chinese philosophy, the opposition and combination of the universal two basic principles of yin and yang is a large part of Chinese philosophy and is an important feature of Taoism, both as a philosophy and as a religion. Although the concept develops much earlier, some argue that yin and yang were originally an earth and sky god, respectively. Some of the common associated with yin and yang, respectively, are male and female, light and dark, active and passive, motion and stillness. Some scholars believe that the two ideas may have originally referred to two opposite sides of a mountain, facing towards and away from the sun. The yin and the yang symbol actually has very little to do with Western dualism. Instead, it represents the philosophy of balance, where two opposites coexist in harmony and are able to transmute into each other. In the yin-yang symbol, there is a dot of yin in yang and a dot of yang in yin. In Taoism, this symbolizes the interconnectedness of the opposite forces as different aspects of Tao, the first principle. Contrast is needed to create a distinguishable reality, without which we would experience nothingness. Therefore, the independent principles of yin and yang are actually dependent on one another for each other's distinguishable existence. The complementary dualistic concepts seen in yin-yang represent the reciprocal interaction throughout nature, related to a feedback loop, where opposing forces do not exchange in opposition, but instead exchange reciprocally to promote stabilization, similar to homeostasis. An underlying principle in Taoism states that within every independent entity lies a part of its opposite. Within sickness lies health, and vice versa. This is because all opposites are manifestations of the single Tao, and are therefore not independent from one another, but rather a variation of the same unifying force throughout all of nature. And so that's what all this dualism and cosmology. Now, just to touch on some, what time? Yeah. Gonna click on this mind-body dualism. Let me And so, like I said, you had wars that have been fought in Europe. See, a lot of this Reformation stuff led to wars. During the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries. You see, the Protestant Reformation began in the 15th century, then the wars came behind it. And so the conflicts began with the Minor Knights Wars, 1522 to 1523, followed by the larger German Peasants' War, 1524 to 1525, and the Holy Roman Empire warfare intensified after the Catholic Church began the Counter-Reformation against the growth of Protestantism in 1545. The conflicts culminated in the 30 Years' War, which devastated Germany and killed 1/3 of its population. Mortality rate twice that of World War I. And then Then you had religious war that was still being fought in Western Europe until 1710, including the Wars of the Three Kingdoms, 1639 and 1651, in the British Isles, the Savoyard-Waldensian War, 1665, 1690, and the Toggenburg War, 1712, in the Western Alps. But all this happened after Martin Luther and his Protestant Reformation. Then you had all these wars being fought. So let's get to this mind-body dualism. Let me see what time it is. Yeah. In the philosophy of mind, mind-body dualism denotes either the view that mental phenomena are non-physical, or that the mind and body are distinct and inseparable. Thus, it encompasses a set of views about the relationship between mind and matter, as well as between subject and object, and is contrasted with other positions such as physicalism and inactivism in the mind-body problem. Aristotle shared Plato's view of multiple souls and further elaborated a hierarchical arrangement corresponding to the distinctive functions of plants, animals, and humans. A nutritive soul of growth and metabolism that all three share. A perceptive soul of pain, pleasure, and desire that only humans and other animals share. In the faculty of reason that is unique to humans only. In this view, a soul is a holomorphic form of a viable organism wherein each level of the hierarchy formally supervenes upon the substance of the preceding level. For Aristotle, the first two souls based on the body perish when the living organism dies, whereas there remains an immortal and perpetual intellective part of mind. For Plato, however, the soul was not dependent on the physical body. He believed in metaphysical metempsychosis, the migration of the soul to a new physical body. It has been considered a form of reductionism by some philosophers, since it enables the tendency to ignore very big groups of variables by its assumed association with the mind of the body, or the body, and not for its real value when it comes to explaining or predicting a studied phenomenon. Dualism is closely associated with the thought of Rene Descartes, 1641, who holds that the mind is a non-physical and therefore non-spatial substance. Descartes clearly identified the mind with consciousness and self-awareness and distinguished this from the physical brain as the seat of intelligence. Hence, he was the first documented Western philosopher to formulate the mind-body problem in the form in which it exists today. However, the theory of substance dualism has many advocates in contemporary philosophers such as Richard Swinburne, William Haskell, J.P. Moreland, E.J. Lowe, Charles Taliaferro, Sayed Jabbar, Monsevirat, and John Foster. Dualism is contrasted with various kinds of monism. Substance dualism is contrasted with all forms of materialism, but property dualism may be considered a form of emergent materialism or non-reductive physicalism in some sense. Now, you have types. Ontological dualism makes dual commitments about the nature of existence as it relates to mind and matter. It can be divided into three different types. Substance dualism asserts that mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundations. Property dualism suggests that the ontological distinction lies in the difference between properties of mind and matter, as in emergentism. Predicate dualism claims the irreducibility of mental predicates to physical predicates. Substance or Cartesian dualism. Substance dualism asserts that the mind and matter are fundamentally distinct kinds of foundation. There are several types of substance dualism. Most substance dualists hold the view that the mind and body are capable of causally affecting each other, known as interactionism. Notable defenders of substance dualism include John Foster, Stuart Goetz, Richard Swinburne, and Charles Taliaferro. Cartesian dualism, most famously defended by Rene Descartes, argues that there are two kinds of substance, mental and physical. Descartes states that the mental can exist outside of the body, and the body cannot think. Substance dualism is important historically for having given rise to much thought regarding the famous mind-body problem. It is compatible with theologies which claim that immortal souls occupy an independent realm of existence distinct from that of the physical world. Cartesians tend to equate the soul to the mind. The Copernican revolution and the scientific discoveries of the 17th century reinforced the belief that the scientific method was the unique way of knowledge. Bodies were seen as biological organisms to be studied in their constituent parts, materialism, by means of anatomy, psychology, physiology, biochemistry, and physics. Reductionism. Mind-body dualism remained the biomedical paradigm and model for the following 3 centuries. Thomistic substance dualism has been defended by J.P. Moreland and Scott B. Ray. Thomistic substance dualism distinguishes itself from Cartesian substance dualism by denying that the body and soul are different substances. Instead, a person is composed of only one substance, the soul, whilst the body is considered an in-soul physical structure. Another type of substance dualism has been defended by William Haskell called emergent dualism. Property dualism asserts that an ontological distinction lies in the difference between properties of mind and matter, and that consciousness may be ontologically irreducible to neurobiology and physics. It asserts that when matter is organized in the appropriate way, in the way that living human beings are organized, mental properties emerge. Hence, it is a sub-branch of emergent materialism. What views properly fall under the property dualism rubric is itself a matter of dispute. There are different versions of property dualism, some of which claim independent categorization. Non-reductive physicalism is a form of property dualism, in which it is asserted that all mental states are causally reducible to physical states. One argument for this has been made in the form of anomalous monism, expressed by Donald Davidson, where it is argued that mental events are identical to physical events. However, relations of mental events cannot be described by strict law-governed causal relationships. Another argument for this has been expressed by John Searle, who is the advocate of a distinctive form of physicalism. he calls biological naturalism. His view is that although mental states are ontologically irreducible to physical states, they are causally reducible. He has acknowledged that to many people, his views and those of property dualists look a lot alike, but he thinks the comparison is misleading. Non-reductive physicalism is the idea while there is one kind of substance physical, it has two kinds of properties, mental and physical. Mental properties aren't reducible to physical properties, in that an ontological distinction lies in the differences between the properties of mind and matter. According to non-reductive physicalism, all mental states may be causally reducible to physical states, where mental properties map to physical properties and vice versa. A prominent form of non-reductive physicalism called anomalous monism was first proposed by Donald Davidson in his 1970 paper, Mental Events, in which he claims that mental events are identical with physical events and that the mental is anomalous. Under their mental description, these mental events are not regulated by strict physical laws. Epiphenomenalism is a form of property dualism in which it is asserted that one or more mental states do not have any influence on physical states, both ontologically and causally irreducible. It asserts that while material causes give rise to sensations, volitions, ideas, such mental phenomena themselves cause nothing further. They are causal dead ends. This can be contrasted to interactionism, on the other hand, in which mental causes can produce material effects and vice versa. Predicate dualism is a view espoused by such non-reductive physicalists as Donald Davidson and Jerry Fodor, who maintain that while there is only one ontological category of substances and properties of substances, usually physical, the predicates that we use to describe mental events cannot be redescribed in terms of or reduced to physical predicates of natural languages. Predicate dualism is most easily defined as the negation of predicate monism. Predicate monism can be characterized as the view subscribed to by eliminative materialists who maintain that such intentional predicates as believe, desire, think, feel, etc. will eventually be eliminated from both the language of science and from ordinary language because the entities to which they refer do not exist. Predicate dualists believe the so-called folk psychology, with all of its propositional attitude of scriptures, is an inevitable part of the enterprise of describing, explaining, and understanding human mental states and behavior. For example, Davidson subscribes to anomalous monism, according to which there can be no strict psychophysical laws which connect mental and physical events under their descriptions as mental and physical events. However, all mental events also have physical descriptions. It is in terms of the latter that such events can be connected in law-like relations with other physical events. Mental predicates are irreducibly different in character, rational, holistic, and necessary from physical predicates, contingent, atomic, and causal. Now, like I said, we on Wikipedia, so let me make sure I don't forget to scroll down. All right, we got references. Further reading and external links. Okay. I'm going to get ready to end today's video. And so, like I said, man, it's good to be able to read Wikipedia, because the PhD, colleges and universities all around the world. And then, when you have these type of conversations and thoughts and discussions and things of this nature, instead of people breaking down into fighting religious wars and wars about ideology and things of that, colleges and universities all around the world, you see, we still sitting around here talking about mind-body dualism and things of this nature, and then how intelligent people are around the world. They try to argue about these things. They try to present their positions and things of this nature, and how their arguments contribute to advances and progresses. You was hearing about things like in physiology and all these different fields. But see, that's from those arguments, from Descartes' argument. Let's not forget. You see what you see today. That's the reason why the doctors go to doctors. That's what they was trying to say. They were trying to say that the reason why the doctors and the reason why the people study physics and chemistry is because of mind-body dualism. And when you talk about the people in philosophy, and when that's what they was trying to say. That's what they were saying. That based on this because of what Descartes did, the people started advancing in science. People started want to go out in space and things of this nature because of mind-body dualism. Not saying that the Catholic Church and Judaism are not trying to advance and progress, use a toilet and wash your hands and things, like take a bath, as if the Jews didn't contribute to the advancement and progress of human beings. People dying from disease and trying to live as if the Catholic Church, didn't try to heal nobody. Well, I just throw this out. The historical Jesus, he healed a whole lot of people based on the Holy Bible. I had to put it out there. Hey, and based on what he did, you can't say that. Hey, when it comes to advancing and progress, and if that's a method of advancing progress, and that you believe that the Messiah can heal you, but we trying to we ain't gotta get all into the clarity, and then we gotta have a big debate and all that. We just talking about how we advance and progress as human beings, and so we come up with all these various methods, and a lot of our methods came from having conversations and discussions. It's just like when we were sitting here reading about rabbinic Judaism or about the Talmud and how the oral traditions and all this. Well, see, they have these conversations about God, and you got all this Orthodox Judaism, then you got conservative Judaism, then you came up, Reform Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism. They believe this and believe that, all, and but a lot of it came through conversations and discussions, and then they document these conversations and discussions, and so all these things was to advance, so we can advance and progress. And so, like I said, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. I'm trying to let it go on about 2 more minutes. Well, really 1 more minute. That way to give it, 3 hours. Because I know I started my video like about 15 minutes after 2. And so, but again, I know the Olympics was pretty good. I think that's a good thing that should be continued. And we got the Summer Olympics, then you have the Winter Olympics. I think that's a good thing for all of us as human beings. It's exciting. It's fun to watch. I mean, think about all of it. And then another good thing about, just look at how all the families and things will travel people will travel to support their family members and things of this nature, and the the uh, the economy. These are good things that come out of this. Being able to travel and the advances and progress that have been made and how to tell time and then look at all the television coverage all around the world, people being able to communicate and all this. So it's so much advances and progress being made that because of the Olympics. And then for us as human beings being able to interact with one another, I think that's the most beautiful part of it all, is that you get to see all the people from around the world just competing in athletics. And then here we not just supporting our team, we just love the sport. We just hooping and hollering, and we go from one sport to the next. And the only thing we want to do is see somebody win, even if it ain't from your country. If you just see somebody win, you just hooping and hollering because we more time oriented. Even I had to admit, we more worried about how much time. And next thing I know, I'm sitting up here looking at the clock. I'm like, come on, man, ride that bike, man. I'm just more excited. I forgot all about just being an American. I'm like, whoever was in the lead, I'm more worried about who gonna beat the time, who gonna set a world record. I didn't care who it was, But long as somebody set a world record, whoever set a world record and it came under the shortest time, I'm hooping and hollering. I'm like, oh man, wow! Did you see that? Wow! And so I think that's the most beautiful part of it all. Is that sometimes when you think you just pulling for your own country, sometimes you don't just be pulling for your own country, but you be, just like I said, you be glad, you be excited to see somebody set a world record, no matter who the hell it is, or just like in swimming, you just seeing all these athletes from all around the world, and not even from your country, and then they out there just competing, and then when all of a sudden when you see who the leader is, it's not even from the leader of the competition. It's not even from your country. And the only thing we looking at is the clock. I'm like, come on, man, come on. We cheering for the person that set a world record, no matter who it is. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's no matter what gender, I think that's the most beautiful thing about athletes from around the world. Even basketball, soccer, team sport. Sometimes you just be glad to see sports, and you just like to see the game, and then you be like, man, look at that goal. Oh man, did you see that? Did you see that girl kick that ball? But I think that's the most beautiful part of it all, is that we just love the sport. See, just enjoy the sport, and it's just and being excited, just seeing at the competition, and so. Like I said, I'm going to get ready to end today's video. Again, my name is Eric D. Johnson, also known as BrightShine. I live right here in the city of Memphis. It's in the county of Shelby, it's in the state of Tennessee. Thank all my family, my support for you, continue to encourage support. And I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, Son of God, for all the blessings and the guidance He provides us all with. And just continue to pray for peace, for there are wars being fought all over the world. And just continue to pray. And when we pray, we believe in our hearts, that our prayers going to be answered. And so, and I know sometimes I start my video like not intentional, but I like to start my video when I'm ready, when I know I can sit and not have to get up and like go to the restroom or anything like that. I want to just sit, do it just like I did right now. Didn't have to move, didn't have to stop or nothing. Just do my video and leave it at that. But I think it's a good thing that I'm able to make my video, because there's a lot of positive things gonna come out of it. And so like I've been saying about the Almighty Vice Lord Nation and serving the Vice Lord, 4 Corner Hustling and everything, Lord Stone Disciple is still Lord Stone Disciple. And see, when I make my video, when you make a foundation on Judaism, you can't bring up no narcissism no more, man. Because all you doing is lying. A lot of you people don't even know what you're talking about, man. You don't know what you're talking about. Just like when we talk about mind-body dualism, you do not know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. You ain't right about nothing because the people in the philosophy class, they argue. They don't even agree with each other. We got substance dualism, then we got predicate dualism, and all them other dualism, you know. So, and they'll sit around and argue, the philosophy class sit around and argue, and, you know, and things of this nature, and it'll be some kind of big disturbance out in the parking lot or something, you know, about philosophy. And I ain't have nothing to do with it, you know. I ain't have nothing to do with it. I walk mind my own business. I ain't have nothing to do with it. Okay. Okay. But like I said though, man, Almighty Lord Stone disciple, Lord Stone disciple. Because when there's stuff you tried to pull, trying to use the Nehemiah library, organized crime, some criminals, and then walk around the city of Chicago, you talking about some gangster disciples and talking about some black gangster new breeds and some everybody killers, and then out there in California, talking about some blood gang, crip gang, trying to use the Nehemiah library. See, that's the reason why I do the things I do. I make sure that conservative vice lord don't never have to worry about you being right, because you ain't right about nothing. You ain't right about nothing. Trying to use no Nehemiah library, you ain't right about nothing. So you ain't nobody to be worried about. And going around, walking around with your chest stuck out, man, you ain't nobody. You ain't nobody. You ain't nobody to be afraid of or be scared of. Lord Stone disciple, still Lord Stone disciple. You can't lie. See, that's one of the good things about, like I said, man, when you see this the program that be on YouTube like OG, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Because see, it tells the truth. See, a lot of people, just like a lot of people who moved to the East Coast, they weren't even from their mother and father, their grandmother, grandfather. They weren't from the East Coast. They were from down south. They were from down south. It's just like the Blood Gang and Crip Gang. Ronald Washington, when they showed that on BET, the gangsters, they told you where Ronald Washington's mama came from. She came from Louisiana. They weren't from California. A lot of people not from California. They never was. They weren't from LA. They came from down south. Same thing with Tookie Williams. When they seen it on BET, they showed you where he came from. He wasn't from California. He from Louisiana. And so them the same damn people that were down south, some of their family members moved up to Chicago or to some of these northern cities. See, and so like I was saying, a lot of them Asian men and women, they talking about this blood gang, Crip gang. See, that's what you had to see about the blood gang and the Crip gang. A lot of the people that you talk about, them African American, black / African American, they not from California. They from down south. They from down here. They from Mississippi. They from Louisiana. They from Arkansas. They from Alabama. That's where they from. They from Texas. That's where they from. They moved to California in the 50s and the 60s. Some of their family members up there in Illinois, in Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Some of their family, Missouri. Some of the people from Missouri. You know, people, they not from California, man. They ain't nobody. Talking about a gang. They ain't nobody. Talking about some the avenues. They ain't nobody. See, that's the reason why I do the things I do. A foundation on monotheism. You ain't got to worry about it. Just like Martin Luther. That's the reason why we talk about the Catholic Church. Because when you talk about Martin Luther, it was some people before Martin Luther. And see, Martin Luther was at this university teaching religion. See, he knew about it. It ain't like he ain't know about these people before him. It ain't like he ain't know. It's just like all this narcissism. They tried to take St. Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, St. Ignatius, the Bishop of Antioch. They took Adversus Heraces and distorted it. They were looking at the heresiology, just like Hippolytus. He wrote all against all heresies. Well, see, Martin Luther, he knew about it. And you see who it was that was supporting him. He knew about it too, because he was a priest in the Catholic Church. But all of this indulgence come up, and now you wavering, you shaking, you not so sure about it, man. No, you look for any kind of excuse, to try to go against the Catholic Church. And then when you try to go against the Catholic Church, you see, you ain't talking about nothing. Dualism. The Catholic Church been constantly showing that they will not tolerate that nonsense. You are a heretic. You are a heretic. And there was all kind of religious wars being fought. People dying, getting killed in religious war. So them Asian people that's out there in Los Angeles, California, you do not have to listen to them black/African Americans, because all they try to do is try to use the name of my library. It ain't nothing but some organized crime, some criminals. That's all that blood gang, Crip gang is. So the Black P. Stone Blood, the Lord Stone disciple is still Lord Stone disciple. The first American, Native American, I know all this blood gang, Crip gang, and then this gangster disciple in Chicago, and all this black gangster new breed, and all this everybody. I have to do these things because I have to show you that you haven't said anything with this Nagmar library. Judaism don't have to worry about, because it's still a foundation on monotheism. You ain't talking about nothing. This Nagmar library, it just didn't get destroyed with the rest of that Gnostic theologian ain't right. And it's being studied, it's being investigated and researched, just like the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls is being studied, it's being investigated, it's being researched. Ain't nobody all around the world, all the contemporary scholars, all the modern scholars, they haven't said anything to refute anything to this. Hey, look, forget that. Hey, you don't listen to that Dead Sea Scroll. They don't worry about the Old Testament. It's a lie. You don't hear nobody saying nothing like that. But I guarantee you hear people talking about this Nagmar library, and they talking about Gnosticism. They talking about those other codexes. The Bruce Codex, the Askew Codex, the Berlin Codex, all that Gnostic theologian junk they got discovered in the ground. It don't mean nothing. That's the reason why over there in Israel, the universities and the colleges, the people in academia, they sitting there looking at this stuff. They studying these things. They already told you that a lot of this stuff they trying to attack the God of Judaism. Is anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic. So you can say whatever you want. You can talk about the blood gang, Crip gang. You can talk about the gangster site. You can talk about the black gangs, everybody can whatever. Man, conservative vice lord, they ain't got to lose no sleep at night about you, man. You ain't nobody to be worried about. Just like I've been saying, I'm showing you. You ain't nobody to be worried about. Lord Stone disciple is Lord Stone disciple. And all that trying to act tough and trying to be violent. Well, I'm just going to put it, before I end, I'm just going to say this about violence. You try to go around and get a lot of people with that, okay, trying to be over in the warehouse and trying to sit around in the warehouse for 8 hours every day. Okay, especially female. Okay. You can sit around in the warehouse for 8 hours. Okay. Yeah. But I'm going to say this. Just like when I was reading historical fact, the Black Plague. The Black Plague. How many people died from the Black Plague? I'm going to say this. I'm going to intentionally throw this out there. The Black Plague. How many people died from the Black Plague? A lot of people died from the Black Plague. Yeah, a lot. How many people died from war? A lot of people died from the religious war in Europe. A lot. I remember, I'm going to remind you of this. I'm going to end my video in a minute. I got to give me something to eat. But 9/11. A lot of people died in 9/11. And how did they die? It was an airplane that got hijacked. It was some airplanes got hijacked. And the people on the airplane died. It was a lot of people on the airplane. They got killed. They got killed. The people in that World Trade Center, I think it was like 2,000 people. They got killed. It was a lot of people got killed in the World Trade Center. Oh yeah, they got killed. How many first responders got? A lot of people got killed. First responders. Fire people, they got killed. How many police got killed? A lot. There was a lot of police got killed. A lot. Because it wasn't just local police. There was a more police trying to come over there and help. There was some more fire department from others around. They got killed. But you know what else happened? Over at the Pentagon, you know, that also happened. There was a lot of people at the Pentagon got killed. They died. Like I said, the people on the airplane, or 4 airplanes, they got hijacked. They all died. They got killed. But the people in the World Trade Center, they got killed. It was thousands. I think it was like 2 in one building. 2,000 some people got killed. The Pentagon, same thing. Wherever that plane hit, at the Pentagon, the people got killed, man. They got killed. And then the people, you know, the first responder, the police and all that, hell, they died too. They got killed. And then there was something else that happened. They call it some kind of syndrome. Because when the building got hit, all this stuff in the atmosphere, people died from that. People still suffering from that today. Some kind of cancer. But it came from after the building got hit, all that stuff was in the atmosphere. All that stuff was in the air. People died from that. They died from that. So, you can talk about how a lot of people all you want. You can talk about a lot of people all you want. But I guarantee you this. I tell you this. Don't you never think want nobody try to kill your ass. Don't never think want nobody resist. Don't you never think I ain't gonna resist. Because that's what I be doing. I be resisting. I ain't sitting around trying to let nobody do that to me. Now, it might be on my video, but like I tell them, White Lord and them stones and them disciples, you don't say, no. Lord Stone disciple still Lord Stone disciple. And then, like I've been saying all the time, Conservative White Lord Incorporated, Bootstrap Incorporated, and then the Stone had their building, and then the Black Disciple had their building. It's coming back, man. It's coming back. And see, that's another good thing about OG on the YouTube. See, a lot of the older guys, they don't have to be discouraged. They can be encouraged. Because I know what it was, narcissism. Okay. Well, you see what I'm doing. I'm showing you, man. Just like the Catholic Church, just like the Jews showed you. You ain't talking about nothing. You're a heretic. You're a heretic. And so what you try to do? The same thing that Martin Luther and his followers tried to do. You tried to be violent. It was a lot of religious wars. There was a lot of religious wars fought. The Catholic Church wasn't going for that, man. They weren't going for that. And they showed it's a historical fact. Catholic Church did not go for that. And the Jews don't either. The Jews that fought wars about religion. They didn't fight war about religion. I don't even want to bring it up today. I don't even want to bring it up. But I'm talking about historically, the Jews that fought some wars about religion. That's what the Bar Kokhba revolt. That's what that was about. Religion. So you ain't saying nothing to the Jews or to the Catholic Church about fighting no war about religion. You ain't saying nothing. But, organized crime and criminals, they try to take information, just like slavery, But I mean, that's one of the biggest things, slavery. Some kind of ideology, come behind it, try to distort the Holy Bible, trying to talk about how black people were mud and all that, what they call the Arab slave trade, and then the West African or transatlantic slave trade, slavery. bigotry, prejudice, racism. You know, but you ain't talking about nothing, man. You ain't talking about nothing about killing or getting into a street fights and all that fist fights and all. You ain't know about it. You ain't know about it. That's the reason why I do the things I do, to show you ain't know about it. You ain't know about it. Lord Stone disciple, still Lord Stone disciple. All you doing is just going around lying. That's all you doing, lying. And making a complete fool of yourself. And going around trying to be gay, trying to be a homosexual or bisexual. Because that's what that Nagamon library is. It's some information in that Nagamon library. You going around trying to promote transgender, transsexual. See, that's all you trying to do is be gay. Trying to make it sound like you got an excuse to be homosexual, to be bisexual, to be a lesbian. That's all it is, man. That's all it's going to ever come. You go around trying to talk about the material world evil, so that's my excuse. Just like trying to destroy the wildlife, trying to destroy nature, trying to destroy the environment. Your excuse is the material world's evil. So since the material world's evil, I'll be self-destructive. I'll destroy myself. And then I'm going to destroy any and everything around me. I'm going to destroy wildlife. I don't care about the birds. I don't care nothing about the water. I don't care nothing about the air I breathe. I don't care about... It's all evil. You just lying. All you doing is lying. Because even them doggone Gnostics, they ain't have this. It tell you that it's various beliefs and synchristically. See, they have various beliefs. You can't even get your own information right. The Bogomils over here. The Sethians over here. The Cathars over here. And all the other ones. The Ophites and I can't name all of them. But it's one thing y'all all have in common. The Jews and the Catholics. They do not tolerate you, period. You are a heretic to the Jews and to the Catholics. You are a heretic. And as for this so-called Protestant stuff, all this denominational and non-denominational stuff, the Church of Christ, you ain't gonna never be right. You ain't gonna never be right. The Catholic Church is right. I don't give a damn what the Church of Christ say. You can try to talk about some verse in the New Testament. The Catholic Church is sitting right there. So what that verse that you talking about, what that's gonna mean to the Catholic Church? Nothing. It don't mean nothing. You can sit around talking about Jesus Christ saying, I'm on this rock, I'm gonna build my church. The Catholic Church is sitting right there. So how that's gonna be a justification for the Church of Christ? The Catholic Church is sitting right there. So man, going on somewhere, trying to pull verses out the Bible. Yeah, it's time for me to end my video. You gotta give me something to eat, man. But see, this is the reason why I do my video, man. Because see, every day I live my life, you can see with your own eyes how people organize crime, the criminals. They made a complete fool out of a lot of people. Then they get mad when you don't want, you know what I'm saying, when you don't want to let them make a fool out of you. I don't care about you getting mad. Because what's going to happen is you're going to make me mad. That's what's going to happen. And when you make Eric mad, Eric going to resist. That's what's going to happen. Eric going to resist. And Eric going to fight. Eric going to fight. I ain't running. I don't run. I run into you. I'm going to fight you. I'm like a damn pit bull, goddamn. I'll fight you. I'll fight a bull mastiff. I'll fight a goddamn kangaroo. I'll fight a Dogo Argentina. I'll fight a Cane Corso. I'll fight them all. I'll fight them all. I'll fight them. Because I'm a pit bull. I was created to be a fighter. That's all I do is fight. I fight my owner. And he done it. I'm seeing news reports where the pit bull done attack. Lord have mercy. Man, let me get. Oh boy. Boy, I tell you the truth. Boy. Let me end today, man. But look, I'm gonna get ready to end today's video. I gotta give me something. Boy. Well, y'all, look here. I'm coming back on my next video. Boy. I'm coming back on my next. Man, y'all take care of yourself. And which each one of you, baby. I'm gonna come back on my next video, man. We're gonna pick up right where we left off, man, because all that you ain't doing the Nazi stuff and trying to use the Nehemiah library. You ain't doing a line. You really ignorant as a song gun, you know. But y'all take care of yourself, and I wish each and every one of you very best.